again, because I'm gonna be plugging it a lot. And then we're gonna be watching a video together. Okay, reaction. This one's largely unchanged. Okay, where is it? The manosphere, helping or hurting men. The manosphere, helping or hurting men. Again. Okay, we can ponder politics. Talk to Brianna Wu about her recent appearance on Trigger Pod. That's what we're gonna look at now. How good is the site compared to the YouTube app on phone? Some praise it. I've had a person in the past that said that it's pretty okay on the phone. Oh gee, wait, I already have Witcher 3. Also, I'm really trying not to spend money right now because I'm trying to gather funds for the equipment. Hello, Logan Coons. This is the first stream I've made. Hello, hello. What brings you to the stream? How did you find the stream? That is usually what I ask the viewers. How did you find me? What other streamers do you watch? Right now, I'm talking about my trip to Ukraine, which I plan to repeat very, very soon. I'll be going to Ukraine again very, very soon. And in order to make the next trip more effective, it would be very beautiful and wonderful if I could get a laptop so that I could actually stream from Kyiv. And you have... Okay, that's a question for the chat. That's a question for the chat. Would you be interested in me actually streaming from outside avenues, like cafes or restaurants? Would you be interested in me starting up a stream on the laptop and be like, hello, I'm streaming to you from this nice cafe in the middle of Kyiv, and we can talk about the news. Why sip this ice latte? Would that be something that would be cool? It would be interesting. It would be pretty reasonable. With a good enough microphone that would pick me up and a camera. I think it would be reasonable. If I had a laptop, it would be reasonable if I had a laptop. I definitely cannot do this with a desktop setup now. That would be unreasonable. I think I could be comfortable with it. Oh, you find me from the Brianna Wu video. How did you like that video? That is a very interesting coincidence because now we are about to watch a Brianna Wu video again. So it's like a full circle. You found me through a Brianna Wu video, and now you're gonna watch me react to a Brianna Wu video again. So you basically came in for what you liked me for. Isn't that cool? Oh, my Holodomor video. Which one? The one... Is it the one where I reacted to Bad Empanada? When I was still using the super falsetto voice. I was still a VTuber. Lucy would be the best in real life streamer, and then I guess I'm gonna be an in real life streamer. if you're generous and help me get a laptop, you know, by either donating on the page, subscribing on the page, because if you do that, 100% of the money goes to me, or donating to the fundraiser. We've got 250 zlotys out of 1200, 500 zlotys so far. So that's a nice achievement. Plus, if I stream in real life, you're gonna be able to sort of see Kiev on a stream. Oh, no. Being an asshole is not much of my vibe. I'd be basically like, I mean, the main thing would be the setting. You know, it'd be like, I'm here drinking this ice coffee, which there's a lot of nice iced coffees in Kiev, in Ukraine in general. Yes, it's Polish zlotys. It's Polish zlotys. So the fundraiser in reality, because it shows a huge number, 12,500. But actually, this huge number of 12,500 in Polish currency translates to a much more moderate number of $3,000. And through this $3,000, I'm hoping to get a laptop, a battery to get electricity when the electricity is out, and a camera. Oh, the chain smoker and Sonsol one. How did you like that reaction? I'm pretty happy with that one, to be honest. A person left me a comment under the video under my reaction to Sonsol and non-smoker, and that person wrote me that they are Sonsol's editor and that they didn't even know that Sonsol had that debate before they saw my reaction, which surprised me quite a bit. It was, hey, I am Sonsol's editor, and before you add the channel with this debate, I didn't even know that it happened. Oh yeah, non-smoker actually still wants to have a conversation with me. So we might be having a conversation with non-smoker on stream at some point in the future. How do you feel about that? Non-smoker has been talking to quite a few Ukraine streamers, if memory serves. It is kind of weird. It is kind of strange. Okay, we're gonna jump in. We're gonna jump in. Hopefully this will be a long night. Oh wow! Thank you. Somebody already donated 50 zlotys. Felsin Pharma. Thank you so much. Felsin Pharma for the 50 zlotys, which translates to I think a little bit over $10. So we have 300 zlotys now. Wonderful. Beautiful. Thank you. Wood and insist the orbiter is a grift. This is not what you think. This video is actually Pondering Politics grilling Brianna Wu about her appearance on the on that show. I've already reacted to her being on the show. Now I want to react her being grilled over going to the show. So if you hate Brianna Wu, I guess that is your cup of tea, because she is actually, I saw some of it and she gets annoyed. She gets really annoyed. She loses it. Sort of, kind of, a bit. She loses it a bit. A little bit. Just a little bit. Gets a little bit lost in the sauce of it all. You know? It is not good. You need patience. In life, you need patience. You know? You need to be like Lucy. You need to be patient. I think. It said it equated to $14. Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. $14. That is actually perfect. Maybe they because I'm basically uh I'm basically giving an estimate to the currency exchange thing. Your current microphone will probably work, but you'll definitely need the fairy thing for. Fairy thing? What do you mean? Fairy thing? Oh, you want me to wear a fairy suit for outside streaming? Want me to become a real life fairy? Do you mean a duck hat? Are you actually in a duck hat? That you should wear a duck hat on in a cafe? I'm really glad Progressive Victory removed Brianna Wu from leadership. Now that's the way to get viewership, I suppose. It's true. Well, I keep talking about streaming from a cafe, so that's okay. You've lost nothing. Nothing of value was lost. Because I keep repeating myself. I keep looping over and over and over again. You know, and keep like this, like this Groundhog's Day. I loop and loop and loop and loop. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into the pondering politics because you've been starved. You've been starved of content. Can wear a duck hat in Medieval Dynasty. Great game. Can I wear it in real life? Duck hat. Which one should I wear? This one? Psyduck Pokemon hat? This one? Should I wear this one? This just looks weird. That just looks weird. That looks wrong. That does not look like something that anybody should wear. That's just wrong. What the hell? Should I wear any of these? Yeah, it does, doesn't it? It's so strange. Okay, let's begin. I've been postponing it for far too long. Wick TV presents. How exciting. I cannot believe it's been 7 months since Wick has edited any videos. What does Wick do? What is Wick's job? I swear to God. I'm honestly beginning to wonder, what is Wick's job as a streamer? He just does streams and just puts out the VOD and that's it? Mission complete? How long is the stream? 2 hours. Below 2 hours. What does he do? Shouldn't he edit segments? Shouldn't he do a bit more? Whatever. That's fine. So no work job like The Sopranos. Okay, let's start. Start right about.
Okay. Welcome, one and all, to yet another
Hello, why no camera? Why no camera?
episode of Wick TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together.
And it's really weird because out of those 2 hours of stream, he's even the person doing the majority of the talking. He's silent a lot of the time during those 2 hours. And he doesn't even edit any segments out of it. I don't know. I personally think it's a bit strange. Brianna Wu had a surgery. Classic who.
Talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. Gang, have we got a show for you today?
Did you know that I might be debating Wick next week? Did you know that I, technically speaking, have a debate with Wick set up? Do you want to know the topic of my debate with Wick? Are you curious? Are you curious to know what I'm going to be debating Wick on? If you're curious, then say it in chat. Say you're curious about who I'm going to be, what topic I'm going to be debating. Israel? No. No Israel. Something far more serious and consequential. I'm going to be debating something far more serious than that, than Israel. Ukraine. More serious. Try more serious. His phantom. Polish-Lithuanian. No. The topic is orcs and Dungeons and Dragons have gone woke and are depicted much more woke than they used to be. And that is a horrible, horrible tragedy, according to Wick TV. And my stance is, it's no big deal. Yes. Woke orcs. The most serious of topics. The artwork. Oh gosh. Let me look it up. Because it's a whole controversy. It's a controversy. It's a controversy. Let me find it. I cannot even find it. Jesus. Oh, I found it. Never mind. People are complaining about it. D&D revised and reviled. These aren't the orcs you're looking for. I'll find it. I found the artwork. I have found the horrible, terrible, horrible artwork. Horrible woke artwork. There you go. I'm gonna be so shocked. Once I show it, you're gonna be so shocked. You're gonna understand Wick's TV dilemma. Why would you even entertain that debate? I don't know. Well, I don't know. I'm trying to grow as a creator. So I have to debate. Okay, look at this. Look at this and gasp in horror. Okay. Look at this. Oh no! Oh no, that is horrible. That is so woke and bad. Gosh darn. Can you believe this? So this is the topic of the debate. This is woke and bad. And I say, I don't see the problem. Do you feel this is a problem? Do you feel like this is a problem? There are better people to debate, Lucy. At least try to shoehorn in ongoing discourse about referring to Russian soldiers as orcs. I don't know. At least in the case of Ukrainian people, I've only seen the orc thing directed towards soldiers, you know? In which case, Vosh's whole argument falls apart because he calls cops pigs. And he says cop is a profession. Well, guess what? Soldier is also a profession. No? Soldier is a job. Being a soldier is a profession. And I've mostly saw the orc thing directed against soldiers because they're pretty horrible, to put it lightly. I'm not gonna, considering how many horrible traumatic things a lot of Ukrainian people went through, I'm not really gonna sort of like, oh, I've lost like my family member was massacred by a bombing, those horrible orcs. I hope we can drive them out. I'm not really gonna turn around and say, you see, you're using very dehumanizing language against those people and you shouldn't, you know? You know what I mean? I don't think I've ever used the orc thing myself, to be quite honest. I'm not sure if I've ever referred. I think I usually just say Russians. Russian soldiers, Russian. I'm not sure if I've ever on any stream used the term orc. For example, the Polish media outright just uses the term in its articles. Like there's this journalist, Polish journalist, she went to be a journalist and now she's just permanently embedded with a unit, lives with a unit, doing things with that unit, and she in her article just uses the term. She even became engaged to one of the soldiers along the way. That's, I guess, a whole other story. I mean, I guess it's good not to proclaim that it's good, but I don't think it's our place to judge the people that have went through really horrible things in life due to this war, to be sort of focusing on what language they use necessarily to deal with that. Okay, let's go. Let's watch the Wick TV thing. Now that you know that I have an upcoming debate with Wick.
The first thing I will say.
Oh yeah, it's an orc debate, so I guess it would fit for me to insert the whole orc. Yeah, I guess that would fit, wouldn't it? No, he was also actually addressing Ukrainians in his segment because he said, "Oh, there are so many fanatic Ukrainian nationalists, and you all look the same to me. You balding Slavs, go to the trenches." Which, also, I think Vosh is looking at this through a very, very U.S. centric lens. I'm gonna say that because I like Poland has a long history with Russia. Poland has a history of being colonized by Russia. There's a lot there. And I just do not see merit to saying that Ukrainian people see the war as a racial war. No. That's such a stretch that I just no. I'm sorry, there's zero merit to saying that people, when using the term, view the war as a racial war. I just think that statement's really off base. I really don't think Ukrainian people believe there's some racial component to the war. Well, the Goth and Viking, the Viking thing is a little bit more complicated because technically speaking, the Vikings were um, a pretty big factor in the creation of Kiev Rus. You know, like that is factually true. Vikings were a big part of establishing Kiev Rus, and then sort of it included the Slavic population. It's it's a whole history thing. Yeah, but I'm not sure if I wanna create broad, sweeping statements uh, based on the beliefs of some super minority fascist slash Nazi groups. I'm not sure if that's the way to go. Wash would appreciate people criticizing him for his Ukraine take as opposed to his other controversies. Should I debate Vosh? Should I debate Vosh on orcs? I'm debating Wick. Maybe I should debate Vosh. No, he didn't specify that. Or at least he didn't say that he. No, I think he did a little bit. I think he did too little to sort of specify it when it comes to Ukrainian people. Okay, let's start. Vosh would definitely be more clout. That's true. And you all know that I'm a cloud goblin. Cloud ducky. So it's like, Okay, let's start. We've been doing a very long intro, a meandering intro. Well, which technically speaking is fitting because this is a super marathon stream that is supposed to get us tons of money for equipment. Which, by the way, I'll be plugging from time to time to remind you.
Say, before I say anything else, is we are back on Twitch. You may have heard. You may have heard that I got suspended, that I got banned.
Yes, for talking to incels. I know. Even I know. Even while being in Ukraine, I've learned the incel arc of this man.
True, I did. But then I worked a little bit on my white
I'm not sure.
boy magic. I used my cis hetero white male powers, okay? And I gave them a good stern talking to over there, and they rescinded everything. Full wick victory, 100% return on investment here. They overturned the suspension. They removed all strikes from my channel.
Okay, the people talk about the two things so much that I don't know. Now I notice it too much. I should stop.
Apologized. So welcome, Twitch viewers. I know I missed you, but we're back, and here we are. But today's topic, let's get to it. Recently, Brianna Wu, guest tonight, went on the Trigonometry podcast. For those who are not aware, it's a more center right-leaning podcast that talks to people from across the political spectrum and has sometimes interesting, sometimes kind of boring conversations. I watched it. I enjoyed it, and I reached out to my friend here, Brianna.
I did not enjoy it, as you may know from my reaction video. If you've watched it, you might have learned that I've not enjoyed it super much.
Wu to come talk to us about it.
So I guess we got different tastes, Wick and I.
We'll do, but again, before we get into it, just full disclosure. I do get a check from Progressive Victory. Okay. Josiah
had nothing to do with tonight.
Yeah,
nothing. I didn't ask for this topic. You invited me.
Rihanna was not associated with Progressive Victory anymore, no? The tooth thing is that he made a GoFundMe for the dentist but never went to get the tooth. Wait, he made a GoFundMe for the tooth? Really? Wait, is that true? Did he really make a GoFundMe for the tooth? What was the amount? Did he get the amount? Did he actually get the... Did he actually manage to get the money from the fundraiser? And never went on to do the... What? He got Baldur's Gate 3 with his tooth money. A few thousand. 3K. That is basically what I'm raising. I need 3K for the laptop, camera, and battery. I'm raising 3K. I know Brianna was out of leadership at least. Destiny has actually stepped up and filled in the vacuum she created more or less. Oh, Destiny has. What is Destiny's role in progressive victory? Actually thought he was just sort of outside of it, to the side of it. Is Destiny actually directly involved in progressive victory now? VK sounds like budget dental work here in the US. Oh, Jesus. 3K is quite a lot of money. It's over 12,000 zlotys. 12,000 zlotys. Go on, I can confront him, then pivot to your 3,000 fundraiser. True. Oh my gosh. So I'm not sure if the link is still on. If you can still see the link, but please consider either joining the page, which I'm going to link right now, or consider consider donating to the fundraiser, which is also a thing that would help me tremendously in order to PV box. Okay, let's start.
Yes, that's true. And Brianna isn't paid by Progressive Victory as far as I know. So here we are. Okay. Let's get into it. So I guess first of all, let me ask you, Brianna, how did this happen? Like, who reached out to who? Tell us about like kind of the lead up.
Who do you think reached out to who? I don't really know. I'm not even sure if I care who reached out to whom. Is Brianna Wu a big figure? Is Brianna Wu a big content creator? If Brianna was not such a big creator, then I would assume she reached out, but is it really that important?
To the experience of being on the Trigonometry podcast. Go ahead.
Sure. So before we get started, I just want everyone out there to know I'm recovering from surgery right now. I'm a little bit weak. So if I'm a little bit dyspeptic today, it's not because Wick or Josiah are boring me. It's because I'm not quite myself yet. So I would love a little bit of grace today. So the way this happened is, obviously after October 6th, I've been a lot more pro-Israel than a lot of people on the progressive
October 6th. Isn't it October 7th?
side.
Hold on.
And it's a lot more pro-Israel.
Did I land in a separate universe now? I'm pretty sure it was October 7th.
After October 6th.
What's up? What's happening?
I've been a lot more pro-Israel. Trail than a lot of people on the progressive side, and it has opened up the doors to a lot of people that I've been talking to. So Constantine.
I mean, I'm gonna show grace. I'm just gonna assume that was a honest mistake. Just gonna assume this was an honest mistake and move on graciously.
Over at Trigonometry is one of the friends that I've made in the aftermath. I don't agree with him on everything. If you looked at our DMs, you'd see me taking him to task on trans stuff he said, disagreeing with him on many of his political views.
Very strange considering all the weird trans takes that I've heard Brianna will say on that Trigonometry program, but what are the things that she actually disagrees on trans issues?
But it's respectful, right?
Brianna actually foresaw the events of October 6th. Interesting.
So he invited me on. I thought it was really, really important to go there and kind of counter some of the things he said about trans.
Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I've reacted to the whole thing. What exactly did she counter? There was no countering. There was a lot of nodding along. There was a lot of agreeing. There was a lot of vague statements. But I did not see much countering. In fact, I'm pretty sure, unless I'm delirious and after a surgery, I didn't see any countering. How strange. Very strange.
Rights with some of his other guests there. So I felt a responsibility to go on and kind of represent a different point of view. So
well, you didn't. You nodded along. How can you say you represented a different point of view if anything they said, you nodded your head and said, yeah, I agree. How is that presenting a different point of view? If you just agree to everything that's being said. That's a very sad attempt at presenting a different point of view.
I said yes.
Okay. So our other guest tonight is Josiah from Pondering Politics, who I reached out to as well, because I wanted to get his...
Apparently this is gonna get a little bit, like... This is actually an example of a person that actually comes in to counter some things, okay? Like, he is what Brianna Wu wanted to be on the trigonometry, but he actually will do it. Which I'm here to see.
His opinion on some of the things that were talked about. So Josiah, did you watch the episode? What are some of your thoughts, I guess, after seeing the show?
Yeah, I did watch the episode. So a couple of things. I, too, am affiliated with Progressive Victory. I was actually recruited.
Also paid show.
Into Progressive Victory by the guest of honor herself, Brianna Wu.
True.
Why have I not been recruited to Progressive Victory? Brianna said, okay, listen, I'm Polish. There are a lot of Polish people living in the US. According to some sources, 10 million Polish people live in the US. 10 million. So I would be appealing to a very, very wide base of voters. 10 million voters? That's crazy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
It is, and that was actually the genesis of the interaction between us, which has always been pretty civil and pretty friendly. And a lot of this is kind of rooted in a shared, stated mutual interest that we want to elect.
That is a good way to put it. Shared, stated mutual interest. That is, yeah.
Democrats and defeat Republicans.
Yeah.
And so we've had a pretty friendly civil.
Basically, you say we have the same goals, but do we? It is stated that we have the same goals.
rapport ever since then. And I did watch this conversation. I was actually, the second I found out about it, I was excited because I wanted to see basically how Constantine and the trigonometry, the pair of them, I don't even know the other guy's name. I'm blanking on it. But do you know what it is, Brianna?
I'm tired. I'm sorry. I'm
No, it's
blanking as
okay.
well, yes.
It's okay. If he's watching right now, he will be wildly
I'm so
offended.
sorry.
But it's my
Guy number 2.
I believe that they're enlightened centrists, right? So I believe that they're
I don't know it. They seem like they lean more right, in my
Agreed.
view.
Well, that's what
yeah.
that's what I call the enlightened centrist, basically
Sure.
somebody who is conservative but doesn't want to say that they are.
Yeah.
And so to have somebody who was a Democratic operative on their podcast who wasn't Tulsi Gabbard, I thought that would be an interesting conversation to have. And so I did watch it, and I was a bit disappointed with some of the decisions that were made by Brianna strategically.
That's putting it lightly. That is a very civil, cultural, and polite way to put it. I think I put it a little bit differently when I reacted to the video, which just shows how uncivilized and mean I am at the end of the day.
So, yeah, that's basically, I walked away from it thinking that she was very generous to the trigonometry folks, and they did not reciprocate her generosity. So she gave them everything. In perhaps what was, good faith. It was an attempt to establish a dialogue with a more conservative podcast, more conservative audience, and they didn't reciprocate. They gave her nothing, and that's something that I think that is worth discussing as far as.
So I think this might be a good place to dig in, because I think the mission objective that you're
All right, let's dig in.
outlining here, that I need to go on there and be Team Democrat. Yeah, look, obviously I want Democrat.
I mean, isn't that your stated goal? You said that you went there to confront certain things, to present a different point of view. And now already you're sort of backing away from that? If you didn't want to present the point of view of the party that you're representing, then what different point of view were you attempting to present? That is my question to you.
Democrats to win. I don't like Republicans. I'm not going to vote for Republicans. But my mission objective was a little bit different. In researching for this, Josiah, I was looking at your channel, and I don't think there's a lot of trans content there. It's not that you're silent on it, and I assume you're an ally. I've never talked to you about that.
I've got a bit of trans content. I've got a little bit of trans content. Speaking of trans content, I'm going to give you some trans content on stream. Hold on, I'll be right back. I have to give you some trans content. I'll be right back. It is very good that I've been reminded of the trans content, because I need to take my hormones now. This, and maybe also this. They've actually checked my bags on the border, and they looked through my stuff, and they saw a lot of books. They saw a lot of notebooks, and the border guard was like, student. No, Pondering Politics is actually quite okay from what I've seen. HRT, that's right. As if Wick makes trans content. That is a good point. That is a fair point, to be fair. So I'm gonna take the pills now. This is gonna be my trans content for today. Bottoms up. This is the gel. I take pills and I also use gel. Ugh. And I rub it under my blouse on my body. That's how I do it. And the residue, I just do like this. And now the estrogen is rubbed in. All right, let's continue. Let us move on. We've had our little trans segment of me taking HRT, showing you how it's done in the most professional, the coat of arms. I think that's some school logo or something. Yeah. University of some university. I'm not sure why she brought it up. She's probably gonna say in a moment why she even brought it up. Let's wait and see. It's gonna be oof. The gel dropped off. Oh. All right.
But it's not really a major focus for you. So I want to be really straight and say that the main thing I wanted to talk to that audience was shoring up the arguments for several things.
Well, you failed. You've not been a good advocate for trans issues on that podcast, program, show, or whatever. I can already say that because I've reacted to that conversation to the full conversation, and you've not really impressed me with your trans advocacy, and I've seen quite a few trans advocates in my day, and you have not managed to impress me.
Is in some cases children having access to HRT.
Oh, there we go. How is that a different point of view? That's a point of view they share. They think trans kids should not have access to healthcare. And now you're saying that you think that at least in some instances they should not. How is that a different point of view of theirs? You're just in lockstep with their point of view.
If the indications are extremely clear, making the case that adults needed access to HRT and kind of making a more moderate pitch on trans rights, which I thought his audience would really appreciate. That was
Well, you have not done that. That's the problem. You've only focused on what should not be given to trans people. You've never actually done a positive pitch during that conversation as to what rights should be given to trans people. So if that was your objective, I'm afraid, at least in my view, you have failed to deliver.
was my main mission objective. The second mission objective was understanding that the trigonometry audience is generally more right-wing. I wanted to go there and be just a normie Democrat, right? And particularly after October 7th, where so much of our party has steered into what I consider to be outright anti-Semitism, I wanted to go there and give just a
I have
face.
to listen to this again. What?
Saying right anti-Semitism. So much of our party has, particularly after October 7th, where so much of our party has steered.
Of our wait. What is our party? The Democratic Party? The Democratic Party has become anti-Semitic after October 7th? I want some examples of that. What are the examples of the Democratic Party becoming anti-Semitic after October 7th? Where are those Democratic politicians just became rabid That's what? Where is I? I don't see it. I'm sorry. I just don't see it. Maybe I'm not looking where I should be looking. Maybe there's something wrong with me, but I just don't see it.
Into what I consider to be outright anti-Semitism, I wanted to go there and give just a face saying, hey,
Hold on, I'm gonna read the comment. By making a moderate pitch to one group and a more radical pitch to another, you only shoot yourself in the foot. Maybe it opens up some of those conservatives to the possibility. Maybe it pushes them leftward, but in the long term, you can't advocate for both without being a hypocrite. Hypocrite. If anything, Ferryman has become philo-Semitic, more so Zionist. This probably means party is in political wing. Okay.
There are Democrats that are really upset about this too, and some of this more communist direction that we've moved into that doesn't represent me and that doesn't represent my party. So
the Democratic Party has moved in a more communist direction? Huh? Since when? Since when has the Democratic Party moved in a more communist
this too, and some of this more communist direction that we've moved into that doesn't represent me and that doesn't represent my party. So does that make sense?
It doesn't make sense. Who is she talking about? It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't. No.
It's not, my mission wasn't to go there and be like vote Democrat. It was a little more nuanced than that. Does that make sense?
It does.
It doesn't actually.
It does make sense, but I would argue.
Okay, there's a but. There's a but.
Argue that even with that mission, I question some of the rhetorical tactics that you use, because you could have, I think, adopted a more moderate approach on trans rights, and also went out of your way, as you did, to distance yourself from what you described in the conversation as the progressive fringe with respect to Israel-Palestine. I think that that's fair for you to do, but it was other aspects of the conversation where I felt that you did not stand your ground in a way that you should and gave too much, like with respect to, we can get into it in more detail. I know Nitwick was going to say something, but like defending Biden's record, Afghanistan, and also the extent to which the progressive fringe represents the Democratic Party. Because you may recall
maybe we're going to talk about a little bit about that debate between Biden and Trump. We'll see.
One time that we ever had any sort of public disagreement prior to this, because I usually keep my eyes
focused. The attention seeking is like par for the course for Brianna Wu.
Focused on MAGA Republicans and, unrepentant right-wingers or enlightened centrists, so I tend not to punch left.
Sure.
But the one time that you and I had a public disagreement, it was about this, like to what extent we can say that the entire progressive movement is characterized by its fringe, to what extent that progressive fringe embodies the Democratic Party or President Biden. And these were the things that I took particular issue with. I think you were too charitable to a party that, or to a group, two people that had no interest in reciprocating your charity.
Yeah, and I'm just going to interject here because this is kind of like, I think, a very important thing.
The first Wick interjection. So this is the first. I just want to say we are 13 minutes in. This video is about 2 hours. And this is the first time Wick is speaking. So basically, I just want to come back to the fact that 2 hour stream, that's everything. No VODs. The last VOD was created 7 months ago. A lot of the time during the stream, he is silent. To
discuss how much charity should we give the other side in these things, in these discussions? Where should we fight? Where should we stand our ground and
Hold
say,
on. That's okay. I disagree with this framing. I really disagree with this framing to begin with. Giving someone charity does not mean that you do not fight them on their positions. You can give someone all the charity and still fight them on their position. Those things are not mutually exclusive. It's not either I give charity or I disagree with your position. You know? Showing charity means that I do not automatically assume malice to the other person's position or something like that. Being charitable, I interpret the things in a charitable way. But I can still disagree with those things, even if I show charity to it. No? Is that not the case?
no, what you just said is wrong, and possibly derail into the conversation? And where should we be like, you know what, we disagree on this, but let's tackle it another day. I'm here to talk about X, Y, or Z. And I think that this is a very interesting kind of strategic discussion. Just to get my thoughts out here about the discussion.
Give us your thoughts.
I thought that if your objective was to go out, and this is to you, Brianna, if your objective was to go in there and to build bridges, I think that you succeeded. However, I do agree with Josiah in that there were a few places where I would have liked for you to push back more. The Ukrainian one and the Afghanistan one are the two that come to mind immediately, but I'm sure there are more. But I just wanted to ask you, Brianna, when it comes to your objective, like as you said, you wanted to go in there and be
the Ukrainian one. Whoa.
a normie Democrat and also represent trans issues you felt were important. How do you feel you succeeded at that? Like, how do you feel about it coming out of that? I just want to talk about that for a minute, and then we can get back into the back and forth.
Well, I think it was a good interview in the sense that I think it clearly got a lot of buzz, right? So I think it was successful from that point of view. And, I got probably 300 or 400 emails, PMs, private messages from people saying that I really helped change their mind on some things. So that's, non-trivial to me. Right after it, I want to tell.
I wonder what were those things that's another vague statement. I've changed my mind on some things. What were those things?
My own husband, who was there with me, told me he thought that I should have defended Biden a little bit more strongly. So I take that criticism. I think that's fair.
We're gonna see how long that lasts, because I've told you I've seen fragments of this. So we're gonna see how long this taking in of the criticism will last. All right? I can already tell you that this is going somewhere. This is not going nowhere. So remember this statement. I'm taking in the criticism, because it's not about taking in the criticism. It's how you react to it. What's important, right? The skill is to be able to react to the criticism in a certain manner. A skill that we should all cultivate.
In my defense, typically when you go on these shows, you get a real breakdown of what you're going to be talking about from the producers. So what I'd planned to talk about with the producers was a lot more talking about, trans issues, talking about the October 7th, the direct.
Did that not pan out, did it? Because you talked about neither of these things, really.
That things had gone with progressives after October 7th, which is what I've talked to Constantine about quite a bit. So I'm not saying that you're wrong, that I shouldn't have defended Biden more. But if I'd known that that was going to be a subject, I would have prepared for that. And, before I did this major media hit,
Hey, hold on. You did not know in advance what the topics would be? That's a bit strange, to be honest.
I always go through and I say, what are the points I want to hit? I write them out, I research them, I word them, I practice them. And I think that's probably why the trans stuff was so much better than the
It was not better. No, It was not better.
Biden stuff, because frankly, I just had not really extensively prepared for that, if that makes sense.
No, it makes an entire sense. I understand. It's just, I think, further evidence that there's certain venues that when I go in, right, I know, or I'm pretty sure that certain topics are going to come up in a wide stretch. Now I get it that if you don't want, if I'm confronted with someone who has a topic that I am not very well researched on, or that I am not comfortable discussing, I can be like, well, I've heard differently, but I'm not prepared to talk about that. I don't know at this present time. I think that's.
But I did defend Biden off the cuff.
No, you
did.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
But I think that, you gave too, as Josiah said, I think you gave too much. But I don't want to.
So get specific. Get specific. I want to hear specific.
Well, I'll let Josiah articulate it. He prepared the timestamps and all that, so he probably.
Ooh, gonna get grilled. Speaking of grilling, I just came back from Ukraine, and I'm in real need because I want to come back to Ukraine again. I've done a few interviews. I want to do more interviews. I want to go and sort of do some things. And I would also like to be able to continue streaming while being in Ukraine, so that the algorithm on YouTube does not start hating me. And to that effect, there are two routes, because basically my main sort of income source is my generous audience. So one of the ways that you can help out in my endeavor to getting a laptop to stream on, a camera to actually do the interviews with, because so far I'm doing it with a phone, and a battery to be able to last during the long blackouts in Kiev, where you just don't have any electricity. No electricity for hours on end. It's actually gotten worse this week, as it felt to me. Like 5 hours of no electricity on end or more, several times per day and night. So you can come to the page. It is one way to sort of do it. Boom. The other way is to enter the fundraiser that I've specifically created for the purpose of buying the streaming equipment. This looks like a really big number, but this is in Polish currency. In reality, this fundraiser in totality is about $3,000. So that's basically it. That's the end of me promoting these ways in which you can assist me. And now we return to regular programming. We return.
Has those transcripts ready, and he can do it. But we're gonna do that. But I wanna hit also on the point after this of this bridge building. I'm curious to hear what some of the messages about what you change people's minds on. I'm just curious to hear that. But let's go to Josiah with the transcript.
I am curious about some specifics about that as well.
Yeah. So a couple of things.
Indeed.
When it comes to defending Biden and the Democrats, right? And again, just assuming that was at least on the back of your mind as a Democratic operative, somebody who wants to get Democrats elected. A couple of things that stood out to me, and it's about at the 38-minute 40-second mark on the transcript, on the video, which is Constantine turns to the topic of the border. Okay, now you did a really good thing here, which is that you mentioned that Democrats attempted to pass, or rather there was attempted the passage of a bipartisan border bill. You said that it would actually...
That's right. The border bill was heavily tied to aid for Ukraine. It was the border, Ukraine, and I believe it was also Israel. And because Trump wanted to just bombard it all, and also he wanted the border thing to be a talking point during his campaign, he basically instructed Mike Johnson, I believe, to shut it down. And so the GOP did shut it down, which caused very specialized equipment. This is something actually that Biden has mentioned during the debate. The specialized equipment that is designed to scan for fentanyl, that was actually just sitting in the storage, just unused, because that bill that will allow the money, because it apparently installing the equipment is really, really expensive and needs a lot of money. But it couldn't be installed because the bill was shut down by the GOP.
Make Democrats very unhappy, which I understand the rhetorical tool there. You're saying, like, listen, this is actually something
It's okay, it's a marathon stream, so we have all the time in the world.
Was done that would have made my side unhappy, and we attempted to do it.
That's right.
And Republicans killed it.
They did.
Constantine didn't respond at all. And I think that would have been a missed opportunity. That was a missed opportunity. You could have said, Constantine, I want to pause on here for a minute. So you and your co-host bring up the border. You're really upset with the situation at the southern border. It seems that you're pretty critical of Democrats. You're pretty critical of President Biden. But government is more than the three branches. There's a legislature.
I would be critical of the situation over multiple administrations. I mean, right, this didn't happen
100%.
under Biden. Yeah.
Right. We haven't had comprehensive border reform in 30 years.
Yeah.
That would have been a great moment for you to push a guy who says he's nonpartisan, who say he's not Republican or Democrat, to actually give a concession to you and say, do you agree, Constantine, that it was wrong, that it was a controversy, a crisis for Republicans to say that there is a crisis at the southern border, use it as a cudgel against the president and the Democrats, work in good faith for months to come up with a bipartisan border bill, and then the second that Trump says he wants to use it as a wedge issue, they cynically pull it away? Does that not make the Republicans morally culpable for the ongoing crisis that you're worried about?
True.
And see what would happen. Because I don't know if he was just unaware of that particular
And that would be actually presenting a different point of view, by the way.
legislative history, but he didn't respond at all. And then you kept going, and then you kind of threw him a bone back and said Democrats have their heads in the sand about this. But I would argue, with respect, at this point, Republicans own the issue at the southern border. If you and I agree that there's a crisis and we work to solve the crisis, but then I pull away to gain a cynical electoral edge, it's my fault now because I have sabotaged this thing in good faith. And I think that you should have made Constantine pay a price, so to speak, for. I think this would have been a good opportunity.
Just to you, Josiah, before Brianna responds.
Sure.
How hard do you press on that? Out of curiosity, like if it's clear that they don't want to engage, how much do you insist that they take this point? Right. I'm just curious.
So there, I think it's a judgment call. So if Brianna had circled back and said, Constantine, again, in the interest,
I believe that was the correct judgment call to make, just so you know.
of good faith, are you aware of this? Can we talk about this? If you are aware of it, will you concede? Don't you agree that it's a problem that Republicans sabotage this cynically to gain an electoral edge? And then see how he responds. If he ultimately responds that I don't know anything about that, Brianna, then you could have said, it's a perfect opportunity to educate you. Here's what happened. Or if you weren't, brushed up on the facts because you weren't prepared to discuss it, you could have said, this is something worth examining because it is dishonest. And I don't think you're trying to be dishonest, Constantine, but it is dishonest to suggest that President Biden alone carries blame for the situation at the southern border. The other party does too. So that to me is where I think some of this is a judgment call. And also even the entire enterprise. I know she caught a lot of flack for having this conversation on trigonometry. I don't share that criticism.
Can we talk about that for a minute?
Well, but
don't-
before
Well, I
we
want to.
do-
I want to respond to
Yeah,
Haze.
sorry. But
yeah.
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Please say something, Brianna. Say something.
Finish, then Brianna respond. Then I want to talk about the.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, if Brianna would like to respond to that.
Yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. So first, I want to
you?
make a meta point, and I know everyone in Twitch Paul hates it when you bring up gender, but it is just simply true that women pay a different price in these spaces for being aggressive, particularly if you're being aggressive against the host.
But that's not being aggressive. That's the thing. That's not even being aggressive. I wouldn't even call it being aggressive.
It is a tool that I have to use way more selectively than someone like Destiny has to, right? He can go argue flat out with Constantine, and I actually watched clips of him doing this ahead of time. It doesn't really... the reason I push him on it is because he won't really answer if you drill down on him. I watched 4 or 5 Destiny
Well,
clips.
then what's the point of going? If you don't even believe that anything will happen if you drill him down on it, that makes no sense. You said that you came here to show a different point of view. That's the different point of view. If you're too scared to give the different point of view, then what's the point of even going? No? Am I wrong? Tell me. Am I incorrect? Am I silly? Am I being silly? Billy?
Clips of him doing that. So I was not under the impression it was going to go well. Secondly, I think y'all just don't have the experience where if you get really aggressive with a host, where you are a bitch, you are difficult, you are...
You don't have the experience. But what Pondering Politics described is not even being aggressive. There is pretty gentle push that he just described. There's no real aggression in there in saying, we can't really put it all on Biden since the Republicans have they have shut down that bill, right? Yeah? Wouldn't you say? Is that aggressive? Really?
bad guest, you're anything but what is helpful in that moment. I'm going to go do David Pakman's show in about a few weeks to talk about, kind of bridging this fringe and the party. The one time I've ever lost my temper in an interview was with David Pakman 10 years ago.
Remember this. Remember this. Remember that statement that she only lost her temper 10 years ago. Remember this.
And it really did not go well for me. It was a really, really strong lesson to keep your cool no matter
Also,
what.
this has nothing to do with it, because you can absolutely do what he suggested while keeping your cool.
So I think, respectfully, I hear you. I think you don't understand.
That's right, Reverse Alt. We back. For now. We back for now, and I'm gathering funds for another trip. I'm gathering funds for the equipment for the other trip. So, dear Reverse Alt, look at the links in the chat. Consider either joining the page, hopefully subscribing or donating, or consider helping out in the fundraiser that I've started for the equipment. It's roughly, the fundraiser's goals is roughly $3,000.
I think you don't understand the calculus that women in this space have to use when they're choosing whether to go aggro on a host or not. So secondly, I think what I would say is I don't share your assessment that just because the Democrats decided to work on this one bill in the 11th hour, that there's not like a lot
I was not on the 11th hour.
of failed opportunities over the last 20 years. You know as well as I do, there's a contingency in our party that wants open borders. They think ICE is automatically the enemy. When people come through the border and they claim asylum, kids have to go somewhere. and they say that's kids in cages. They don't want any infrastructure set up to do that, and they make Democrats pay a price for just providing housing for that situation. So I think you can look up and down the policy here, and my honest view is it's not all the Democrats' fault or the Republicans' fault. This is plenty failure to go both ways.
That's basically just a nothing. This is a nothing statement. We should look at policy, and I think there's blame. Everyone's to blame, and we should look at that's okay. I guess I should have gotten used to this, but it's just a lot of vague nonsense again.
Example, here in Massachusetts, we have an international port. We've actually had to send a lot of our judges down to the southern border because they're so understaffed down there, because there's been a failure by presidents of both parties and the Congress, when it's been in control of both parties, to apportion more money to fund immigration courts just to make sure the law is applied fairly. So, it's
Well, it also depends on what the law is. Unfair law cannot be ever deployed fairly, can it? So it also always depends on what the law itself is. We have to keep that in mind when having these sort of discussions.
You're saying, but it's not my honest view that everything the Democrats have done on the border is good and everything the Republicans have done is evil.
That is not even what he said. That's not remotely what he has said. He has not. Does Brianna even listen to what is being said? What he said is that it's not okay to just dump it on Biden's lap, to blame the whole border situation just on Biden, because the Democratic Party wanted to work with the GOP, wanted to pass this bill, and the GOP shut it down because Trump wants to use it as an issue during the campaign. Not once did he say that everything that the Democratic Party does is good and all that the GOP does is bad. He never said that. So you're just responding to something that was never said and did not respond to the things that were said. Why?
I think it's failure on both sides.
It's not. Well, that's not my view either, and I'm not even asking.
There you go. He never said that even.
For it to be your view. I'm just saying that if you agree that both sides did something wrong, then instead of, in my opinion, focusing exclusively on what the Democrats have failed to do, their heads in the sand, I think you should have spent more time, being the armchair quarterback here, talking to Constantine about the failures of the Republican Party.
That's fair.
Because because I disagree. I don't know any Democrat, unless I've missed something from AOC or Ilhan Omar or Rashida Tlaib, where they want open borders. And this particular,
not an elected Democrat, no.
Fair enough.
Well, then what does it what does it even matter if non-elected Democrats want?
I think that's also something as a broader distinction worth making. You talk about the progressive fringe a lot in this conversation, and it's clearly something that they want to emphasize on. This is really a series of agreements and reaffirmations between you and the Trigonometry co-host. But I think another distinction worth making is saying, hey, Constantine, just FYI, the critical difference between the people that we both agree, you and them, are crazy on the left versus those who are crazy on the right is that the right are much more likely to elect their crazies and give them state power than those on the left.
Agreed.
That I think that's also something worth mentioning, that the people who sabotaged this border bill weren't people on Twitter, even though certainly progressives complained about it. It was the Republicans. And so that's just, to me, it's like, I'm not asking you to say Democrats are perfect, Republicans are pure evil.
Sure.
But I think it's worth spending your time on, especially if the whole point is building a bridge. Well, are you crossing the bridge to them, or is this a bridge where you meet in the middle? Because if it is, then either Constantine on his own initiative has to meet you in the middle, or if he won't,
oh my God,
you should try
Thank you for the $20. Thank you for the $20, fake Alec Cal Parker. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That donation will all go to the equipment. It will all go for the equipment. Everything that you donate on the page and everything that you donate on the fundraiser, it all goes towards the equipment for streaming in Ukraine. Thank you.
Pokes him over like, hey, Constantine, I've given you a little. I've talked shit about the left here in good faith. This is something I share. Why don't you give me something of the right? Like, what is the right done? What's Trump done? What's the Republicans done?
True.
There was none of that. None.
I think that's fair. One of the talking points I did prepare a lot to talk about was an election denialism, which, in my view, is the hard stop of why you just can't vote for a Republican, right? I think no matter how you feel that
I just want to note once again, Wick is silent throughout all of this.
given policy, the Constitution and the peaceful transfer of power, that trumps, even for me, abortion, trans rights. There's nothing more important than that.
Agreed.
And the Republicans don't seem to believe in that. So that was something I'd really planned for, and the conversation didn't go there. So please go ahead.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, may I point this out, because it's funny you say that. This was kind of another point that was a source of frustration for me, just with the dialogue there, because I agree they didn't really invite any conversation for you to talk about the electoral denialism within the GOP. But at the 47-14 mark, I also have this noted, that the other guy, the co-pilot, whose name escapes us both, he says...
I need to Google this. Anyway, carry on.
Yeah, or maybe it was Constantine. I just have host written down. I thought it was the other guy, but he says if Donald Trump is reelected...
It's Francis.
It's Francis, thank you. It's Francis. So
we got it. Don't worry, Francis.
Okay.
We got
Frank.
you. You're not forgotten. Go ahead.
Yeah. But the host at 47-14, and I should have put down if it was Constantine or if it was Francis, he says, if Donald Trump is reelected, you will see a progressive meltdown on a scale that will dwarf 2016, which will only make the country worse and the left way more unelectable. And you responded with, that's right, they don't believe in democracy.
It's very interesting, this statement of they don't believe in democracy, as opposed to who? Donald Trump, who completely believes in democracy, like the January 6th being the, the example, or his statements about changing the Constitution itself.
Being the fringe left, to me, that would have been a perfect opportunity for you to use that platform to also emphasize that paramount concern. Say, but also, Francis and or Constantine, if we're going to talk about
drinking
meltdowns, there's a chance that Donald Trump might not win. And do you recall what happened, Constantine and or Francis, the last time Donald Trump lost an election?
He decided that democracy is not that worth preserving. Yeah, I recall.
They tried to stage an insurrection. The left never did that. That is one area where just objectively the right transgressed much worse.
True.
So what do you have to say about that, Constantine and or Francis? Like, can we, if we're gonna,
do you think it's fucking easy for you?
There you go. The last time I've lost my patience was 10 years ago. I take in the criticism. I'm just reminding you these comments that we've heard. I'm just taking in the criticism. That's fair. That's okay. Going aggro does not work for me because of my gender, and I don't really lose my temper because I can't. So,
what do you have to say about that, Constantine and or Francis? Like, can we, if we're gonna,
let's hear.
Do you think it's fucking easy for you to sit here and just like go through clips and go like, why didn't you say this? I mean, do you not think I could dial up your own show and look at a transcript
100%.
and do this to you all day? Do you know how, like, you understand this is it's kind of condescending, right? Like you get that, right?
So I said,
It's not. It's called criticism. As I've said before, it's not about just taking in the criticism. It's all about how you react to the criticism. And if your reaction to any criticism is to blow up like this, and it sort of indicates that you are not really taking in the criticism all that well, does it? Does it now? I will leave it to the audience to decide.
That it's armchair quarterbacking earlier, and
Okay.
if this is, I mean, this is the kind of the conversation, right, where I
Sure.
disagree about your approach. But Brianna, if that's a problem, then we shouldn't even continue the conversation, because that's
I'm just saying it's really
True.
easy to sit here and go, you should have said X, you should have said Y. I mean, I don't disagree with you that I probably should have shown up and prepared to defend Biden more. The clips of trigonometry that I prepared to watch for, and I could show you the clips I traded back and forth with the producers as I asked for every single interview he'd ever given on trans stuff, and I watched all of those 3 or 4 times, preparing for that and getting my talking points ready on that. I completely cede that I should have been prepared to go more aggressive on defending Democrats. We're in agreement on that.
It's not really about aggression in my view, but
I'm just saying it is so easy to sit here and like, I'm sure if I went back and looked at it, I would find tons of stuff that I could say differently or better, right? It's just...
I mean, that is the process of learning. Yes, that is the process of taking in the criticism and finding the ways in which you could have done better, and then trying to do better next time, not exploding at the person that says what you could have done better.
It's true. No, I'm going to give you this one, right? And I don't think Josiah would disagree that. Yes,
not at all.
For me, I look back on some of the stuff I sometimes I go on shows or I do my own shows and I look back and it's like, man, I missed that, I missed the other. It's very hard in the moment to get things exactly right. So what I don't want this to be, and I'm trying not to make this, is to have this be like a thing where we just tear you down the whole time, because that's not, because
What do you mean we, Wick? You're being silent through most of this. We.
As I told you in private, and I'll just say public, like 80% of that, what you did in there,
20%'s a lot.
Good. I stand it. We should do more of it. And
it's incredibly difficult to go into these spaces.
Absolutely.
I mean,
and if I may finish, though, just real quick, right?
Sure.
Like the
20%'s a lot. Just saying.
Fact that you were willing to go into a potentially hostile situation, a hostile podcast, and confront people directly and admit to the faults in your own side.
She did not confront anybody. She just nodded along.
Right? And then have that discussion, put you head and shoulders above all these people who are calling you out for even going on. And if I want just briefly to transition to that for a moment, to talk about that a little bit, because one of the reasons I invited you on tonight is because I saw people like Sock Done Left and all these other people come at you for, oh, is this Wu leaving the left? How dare she be nice to Republicans or centrists? Or how dare she? Oh, look, Elon Musk tweeted at her. Oh, this must be her being an apologist. And I just wanted to kind of not only give you
Have we returned? Are we back? We are back, I think. Yes, I believe we are back. Excellent. My OBS just died. It just froze. I wonder how much of this riveting commentary have we lost. Well, we're just moving forward. I'm not going to repeat. There is no moving backward. There's only moving forward. Why did that happen? The OBS just froze. It just froze in place. Oh well. That happens. Too many unused. I don't think that's the cause. I don't think that's the cause. Actually deleted some. So I had less than usual. So maybe I had too little sources. I had too little, Joe. Maybe I had too little. I don't know. It happens. Just move on. Let's just forget it ever happened and, pretend nothing happened. Let's just pretend most people did not leave.
And abdicate.
Okay.
And I think it leaves our party weaker. So, I hear what you're saying about tactics A, B, and C and how I might have done them better, but I'm trying to do a different job here.
What are you trying? I don't even know what you're trying to do here, to be quite honest. I don't even know what you're trying to do.
I'm trying to steer the Democratic Party back in a direction as someone that does have credibility on these issues to something that I think will be more successful electorally.
Well, the problem is you don't have credibility on these issues. That's the biggest problem. That's one of the big problems. You don't really have credibility on these issues.
I think that's a really important political project.
I want to ask you, Josiah, right? Since you're here
Sure.
too, right? I have some issues with both of you here, right? Like I have some issues with Wu. We're gonna go through them.
I am
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
well aware of our issues. You and I
Exactly.
hashed them out.
We've
yeah.
had this conversation before, but I think it's worth bringing back up,
Yeah.
right? One of the things that Wu says here, I just think is correct, right? That in a lot of ways you, and again, we're buddies, bro. Okay, this isn't an attack.
I won't take it personally.
Yeah, you fail to keep our house in order. One of the problems we have is I understand you want to keep the focus on MAGA Republicans because they're worse. I
True.
agree. I agree. I'm not a Republican. I'm
What
a
is
Democrat.
what is with the what is with the constant is that part of the post-surgery thing?
Right?
Well,
For
listen.
Republicans because they're worse. I agree. The problems we have is I understand you want to keep the focus on MAGA Republicans because they're worse. I
Or
agree.
does she disagree? She doesn't think the MAGA Republicans are worse? You think they're equally bad? All sides are equally bad?
I agree. I'm not a Republican. I'm a Democrat, right? For good reason.
Yeah.
But I think it makes it harder for the normie, the undecided, the maybe center right leaning or maybe center left leaning person to take us seriously when we are refuse to say the sun is shining when it's shining, right? Like we refuse to acknowledge just these basic facts
What?
of, yeah, there's a big anti-Semitism problem on the fringes of the left and the right, right? And so I think my question for you,
Well, if you focus on the fringes, then how does that even move forward the whole electoral thing? Fringes, especially on the left, do not decide electoral politics. It's not how that works at all. Well, it does work actually. It would be a good point, a good time to point out that actually the fringes on the right more often are elected officials. You know, like the Trump fanatics in the GOP. They are actually in positions to actually do damage. But the fringes, quote unquote, on the left, what can they do? What can they actually affect? Nothing. So what is the discussion that is being had here?
sir,
Sure.
is
Sir?
in what ways or
Sir?
why don't you do that more? I guess I'll start by asking. Yeah,
So-
why
so-
have you just kind of decided to focus on MAGA?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So number
Because
one,
MAGA actually does stuff. MAGA actually did block that bill.
I just want to say again for the record, I completely disagree with anyone who says that conversations with trigonometry are not worth having. I think that's a judgment call. There are probably some people, I imagine, that it would not be worth engaging with. but I don't think trigonometry is one of them. David Packman's been on trigonometry. Steven Destiny's been on trigonometry. Bill Maher and a bunch of others as well. I think that they are perfectly within the Overton window of acceptable dialogue. I just think it's what you do with that opportunity which matters, and that's where the disagreement between Brianna and I is. Now, as far as her goals being different, again, I totally understand that she is trying to appeal to more moderate people, more centrist people, perhaps Republicans who could be won over. And so she goes on to these platforms and tries to establish a rapport with the hosts. She says that she's received dozens, hundreds of emails saying that, hey, you've kind of moved me on this issue. So, I mean, I can't fight that. I have no idea,
I have no idea what those things were to begin with.
What those emails say. She says that they have been won over. I've got to take that at face value. I can just only opine on what it looks like externally, which is, again, I think she was too generous with the opposing side and extracted no concessions.
I agree, and that's putting it lightly, to be quite honest.
Concessions from trigonometry. But I take her point. Somebody's going to have these conversations. I have not been invited on trigonometry, and I don't know how it would be.
If you
of course,
would you?
Of course, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, there's no reason not to. I'd love to be on. That's why I'm on Piers Morgan's ass all the time too. I'm hoping eventually, once I crack 500,000 subscribers or something like that, I can be on Piers Morgan.
You gotta get that clout, bro. Okay.
That's right, baby. That's right. So I'm hoping that'll eventually happen. But again, I don't fault any for this, and I also take the point. Again, to say it is easy to do an after-game review, like they do in sports, and say, you shouldn't toss the ball here, whatever.
You too, if you like, trust me.
Well, hold on. But respectfully, that's not my statement. My statement was my political project is more difficult than yours.
My political project is more difficult. No, it's not. It actually literally isn't. Her political project is actually simpler. Because it's just giving ground to the other side. It's just it's exclusionary. That's more difficult. To be more conciliatory. To nod along to the supposedly opposing side's views. That's more difficult. Is Vosh still simping for Wu? I believe not.
I don't think it's hard to go and produce a show that's like just attacking the Republicans, right? I think it is much more difficult to be in groups and to see the fringe politics driving it off a cliff and to speak up against that. Josiah, it comes at such a high cost for my mental sanity and my peace.
Oh my gosh. Oh no. I want to hear that again. That's so woe is me. Oh no. What a cry fest.
And for that, Josiah, it comes at such a high cost for my mental sanity.
Oh my gosh.
And my peace. And, there's a dollar sign attached to that, right? What I consider to be a very principled stand on October 7th, this is a fight that you've largely sat out. And I'm sure it's been great for your channel growth. And I don't fault you. You don't have to do what I do. But I do think it's...
What? Nodding along when people say horrible things? True, you don't have to do that. No. That is true.
It's a braver choice.
Come on. It's just silly.
And I think it's
So
not that I
brave.
don't think you have a right to sit here and go, you should have done A, B, and C. But from my point of view,
From my point of view, the Jedi are evil.
don't see a lot of what you do as a profile in courage.
Can I'll let you respond. Don't worry. But Wu, can I ask you a question on that?
Sure.
You're a coward, pondering politics. You're a coward. You don't have the friction of my courage.
Fault him for that? Do you think that he has to? I would disagree with you on that. I think that
I didn't say that. I literally just said the opposite.
I'm just
I said,
making sure.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm clarifying, okay? Because if I may stick up for Josiah for a moment, right? you're right. He does something different than I do, something different than you do. But I think that thing has value, and I think there is a form of courage and honesty in saying, "Hey, I don't know enough about this topic.
Courage, the dog.
It's very super complex. I don't know, so I'm not going to weigh in." And I honestly applaud you for doing that. I should do that more. I should say, you know what? I don't actually know much about this, so I should probably shut up. That's a flaw I have. I like to talk, but Josiah, I just want to stick up for you a little bit here because Josiah, I think you're great. You're awesome.
I appreciate that.
But please,
Yeah.
Woo, if you're not finished, you can finish, and then Josiah can respond. Cool?
I appreciate you chiming in, Wick, but I'm trying to ask Josiah questions, and I just kind of want to answer for that.
Sure.
I mean, do you hear where I'm coming from with that?
No, absolutely not. Your position be more courageous, quote unquote. No, I don't see where you're coming from. No.
Oh my God. These are the technical issues I'm talking about. So yes, I do. Can you all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
Is the camera still showing?
No.
I mean,
the
yes,
camera-
I can see where you're coming from, but I just disagree.
It's not showing.
Hang on. Okay, so you all be able to hear me, but I'm going to shut the camera off and try to turn it back on. So anyway, so I do hear from where you're coming from, Brianna, that it is certainly a much more volatile space in terms of being attacked by the left than what
Yeah.
I do. There's no question
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
But it is also a choice that I made for a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't know nearly as much about this issue. Foreign policy was not, I have a political science degree, but foreign policy was not my area of focus. It was more domestic policy and electoral politics. So number one, I try to stay out of areas that I don't know enough about. Number two, because I am covering electoral politics and domestic policy in an election year, I just don't have the bandwidth to even cover it, even if I wanted to. And number three, I take your point. Again, just want to reiterate that, of course, it is a much more contentious area for you to do what you're doing. But I would also argue respectfully that the courage has to manifest itself if you're going to talk about these issues.
True. You cannot just say you're courageous if you're nodding along.
Quote
That's
unquote
not courage.
position that you're trying to make bridges with. You also need to confront them
True.
about your disagreements, and I don't think you did. So I think
There you go. Which flies in the face of the courage comment, by the way.
it's two different aspects of courage. I'll perfectly concede to the one, but I don't think it was particularly brave for you to spend most of your time agreeing with Constantine and Francis.
True. There you go. I'm in lockstep with pondering politics now. True. It's what I said.
And I know you're capable of enormous courage. I just don't think like this particular one was a standout example of it. But I don't fault you for that because, again, I get the pressure that you're under, but I just think you could have
Done better.
stood up a bit more for some of these issues.
So this is the math as I see it. And maybe this is just a difference in what we think the Democrats should be doing.
Maybe you should just suck at maths.
As best as I can tell, progressives or the fringe left represents between 1% to 2% of the electorate. I've looked at the numbers as honestly as I can. As far as the people that actually show up and vote, that's what it looks like to me. The fastest growing segment of the American electorate are independents. They're 42% of the party, right?
I'm not sure what that's have to do with anything, but let's wait. Eventually it'll go somewhere. Eventually the point will be made.
And a lot of these do lean right, but a lot of people are looking at the crazies on both sides and they're going, I can't vote for either of them. And part of it is because like accounts like Libs of TikTok are amplifying the fringe, and Fox News amplifies our fringe and equates them with MAGA. I think all three of us would probably agree that like there's a lot more MAGA than there are like fringe crazy communist
Absolutely.
progressive.
Right.
But it still needs an answer, right? So let me give you a hypothetical. Like
Sure.
Lauren Southern is going to be coming over here to do a shoot on, it's going to be September, early September, right? We hated each other during Gamergate, screamed at each other all the time. She had a child. she has really she's talked about this. She has a much bigger awareness of the challenges that women face in the workplace and kind of what the role of feminism is. I personally have had, a lot of disillusionment with a lot of the progressive policies that I was
Can you give us examples?
advocating during Gamergate, right? So, like, for
Of course, there's not going to be examples, of course. Why would there be?
conversation like that, do you think, like, is it more helpful for me with Lauren Southern to sit down and go, like, oh, I just hate you. You're completely wrong about this.
Who talks like that?
No,
Or to
of
sit
course
down
not.
and go, like, hey, this is what I've learned in the last decade. This is what you've learned in the last
Sure.
decade. We disagree on this. Let's talk about immigration. Like, she's going to be staying at the hotel where my state of
That's not what you did in the trigonometry thing. What you did in the trigonometry was basically, you know what? I used to hate you guys, but then I learned that you're actually right. Nod. That's not disagreeing. That's the opposite. It's the opposite of disagreeing. That's fully agreeing.
Massachusetts is putting a lot of the migrants that have come here up. So, to talk about how that's affected the Massachusetts budget, right? Or what the public policy should be about that. I think that, like, building bridges for the, like, calculated purpose of appealing to that 42%, that seems like a really smart mission to me.
Well, not if you're just agreeing with the other side. Because then, believe it or not, you're just pushing the undecided to that other side. Oh, look, that other side has this opinion, and this woman who supposedly didn't agree with it nods along. So, maybe I should just go vote for that other side. That's basically what I see happening.
But maybe
with this smart strategy.
disagree.
No, I listen. So, not the world's foremost expert on Lauren Southern, but from my limited understanding, and you kind of hinted at it, she seems to be moderating in certain aspects compared to where she was, 2, 3, or 4 years ago, or however long ago it was. I think, unless there's something about her that I'm missing, I think that's a totally worthwhile endeavor. But Brianna, that's precisely the point. I think she'll reciprocate. I think you can say, hey, listen, Lauren, here are things that I dislike about the left. And then you guys beat up on the left. And then I think, maybe I'm wrong, Lauren would say, you know what sucks about the right?
Oh,
and then
yeah.
you guys, but Constantine didn't do that. That to me is the difference. So I think that this is a great example of where I think it may be much more fruitful than the conversation that you had with trigonometry, because I think unlike Constantine and Francis, based on my understanding, Lauren Southern is willing to actually.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for the tier 1. Here's more money. Thank you for the tier 1. Thank you.
See, she's willing to reciprocate your charity and talk about the crazies on her side and how it's been deleterious to the overall movement. That was not the case in trigonometry. They did not care to reciprocate your charity at all. It was just completely, let's talk about the 30 million ways why the left sucks. And so that's why.
Which just push. Guess what conclusion will the undecided come to after something like that? Let me think.
I think Lauren Southern will be
Such a mystery.
more productive, or at least
That's
has the
fair.
potential to be.
That's fair. I do think you misunderstand. Have you read Constantine's book by chance? Because I feel like
not.
people really misunderstand him. So, yeah,
I mean, maybe.
is basically someone that escaped communism, came to the West. He's Jewish, and really, really, really fell in love with Western values, which I know you say Western values, you think of that as like a
Escaped communism. Where is he from?
right-wing catchphrase, but he really means it in the sense of like liberalism, enlightened multiculturalism, free speech, free markets, all that kind of stuff. That's fundamentally where he's coming from. And I think a lot of what people perceive as right-wing is really, I think
perceive as right-wing.
The outcome is the policies he took talks about are more right wing, but I don't think it's because he's a right wing ideologue. I think it's because the right wing talks about the value of all of those things more than we do, which is why I appreciate what you do, Wick, which is talk a lot about free speech and the value of it. Yeah.
If I may,
That's, I mean,
because I remembered the exact point I wanted to make.
Sure.
Once you brought up Constantine and his values and things like that. During the show, he mentions Ukraine, and you guys talk about Ukraine.
oh, there you
One
go.
of the
Yeah.
Ukraina. There we go.
statements he makes is that Ukraine, we need to start moving towards pushing for peace in that region, right? For pushing
It's usually what all the hacks say, by the way.
for Ukraine to sit down
Yeah.
with Russia.
Why was that funny? Oh, okay.
If I was there, okay, that's where I would have
Why was that funny?
been like, nope, hold on, we have some discussions to have here. I think
So
that
I
the
don't
way-
remember
if
what I said in that
No, I
moment.
understand.
Can you remind me? Yeah.
I don't think you addressed the point, which is the issue,
Okay.
right? Like,
Hello, vodka. Hello.
so what happened, like, when people say these things, right, and when people just say something, so what I felt was just miss the mark. And again, I don't mind Constantine. I think he's right on a lot of things, but he's wrong on more. And this is one of those things
True.
he's wrong on. And I think that we should have just, you should have just when you were there. And again, Monday morning quarterbacking, I get it, but it's one of those things that just it made me like, I wish I was there. I wish I had been in the seat to push back against these things. But I wanted to ask, and this is to both of you, actually.
All right.
We talk about the fringe, and one of the things that Josiah, you've said before about the fringe of the left is that they are not in any position of political power, and that's largely true. But where you and I disagree on this, where you and I disagree on this is
Oh, Brianna would disagree is that the French on the left does not have political power.
I think that they have political influence that is outsized
Yes.
by their legislative
Examples, please.
representation. And I just wonder how much you worry about a lot of the fringe left being anti-Biden, not just neutral on Biden, but outright, we're not going to vote for Genocide Joe. So
Yeah,
how
so
do you
listen-
how do
yeah.
you deal with that? And then I want to hear Brianna's opinion too. But I want to toss it to you first and get your thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah. So
It's really interesting watching this in the wake of the not so great debate.
course, there are things I see on Twitter. There are conversations that I have privately. I've had them publicly with the guys from the Vanguard, are a great example, who are leftists, who are anti-Biden, and I think they're veering more towards anti-electoralism. I frequently engage with them. As a matter of fact, I'm supposed to be having a conversation with them on Sunday. We'll see how that goes based on the current workload. Another one. God damn it. The camera dip out again?
Yes.
Yes. Sorry.
Okay, just
Sorry.
no, don't apologize. It's shit on my end. This is what I'm talking about. This is what I meant before the conversation that we had in private.
Sure.
So yeah, there are people on the left and shit that I see on Twitter that drives me nuts. And even from people that I consider like good friends that I have disagreements with. But here's how I look at it. And again, you may disagree, but I think it is sound logic. I'm a finite person with a finite set of skills and a finite area of knowledge. And right now I don't have the bandwidth to try to master everything. And so I basically pick my battles, as I feel that we all do. I don't think anybody's indiscriminate. And so when I evaluate my quote unquote targets, I see that the Republican Party is objectively worse. And unless something has happened with Brianna, which I don't think it has, she would agree. The Republican Party is just worse than the Democratic Party. They elect their crazies. They give them state power. Marjorie Taylor Greene is not some lunatic on Twitter. Well, she is, but she's got an official office Twitter, right? We don't see that nearly as often on the left. And I will never pretend that these two sides are comparable.
Well, no one's
True. You cannot just say, oh, the fringe left has just as much power as the fringe people like Marjorie Taylor Greene on the right. That's absolutely correct.
And
No one's
so-
asking you
well-
to, but
well-
what I am
well,
asking.
yeah, no, I understand. So, but let me finish. So the reason that I hyperfixate on the right is because I believe that they are the biggest and most proximate threat. But to tell you, as I believe I've told you before, but to reaffirm, of course I take issue with what's going on aspects of the left, particularly on social media, and certainly the anti-electoralism. It's incredibly dangerous.
Do you think it's going to have an effect? Is my question. Like, how worried about it are you? Was like the specific question. How much do you think this is going to impact the upcoming election?
I don't. So it's going to be a razor thin election, and I think it's possible that it will have an effect. But I don't know. That's the problem.
Okay.
And that's also, again, one of the reasons why I engage with, again, the likes of the Vanguard, because they are anti-Biden and anti-electoral at this point. I think that.
Oh, I said that. I just don't believe that. I just don't believe that. The so-called fringe that is anti-electoral, that are anti-voting, will make such a huge difference. I just don't believe that to be the case. I don't believe that to be the deciding factor on whether or not Biden will win or lose.
That they're either going to vote third party or not at all. And yeah, that I do think that is a problem worth responding to, but I also think it's important to keep it in perspective. I would never make 50% of my time, let alone the totality of my time or the majority of my time, focusing on policing the the left, unless I was on the right. Like, I feel that at the end of the day, you got to triage.
Konstantin was born in Soviet Russia and then moved to the UK at 11 years old. So yeah, wait, Konstantin is Russian? Is that correct? Since he moved from Soviet Russia, that makes Konstantin Russian, yeah? Or am I mistaken again? How old is Konstantin?
And the biggest obstacle is the right.
I want to toss the same question to Brianna Wu and let her go. And gang, just a housekeeping thing. I will be reading the super chats which you're giving. I'll be reading those in about 10 minutes at the top of the hour. So keep sending me money.
Did the camera come back on?
Yes, you're good. Wu, take it away.
So I'm extremely worried about this, and Josiah, this is where I think you're wrong. Because I think you're assuming the only way to have power is to have electoral power, and that is not true. I think the fringe left has captured a lot of media power, and I think they have a lot of power in silencing people that they disagree with. A really good example.
Okay, we're about to get an example. How is the fringe left counseling a lot of media? Okay, let's hear the example.
Anna Kasparian and her entire controversy with birthing person, right? This is something, I'm sorry, if you talk to cis...
She was never silenced. This is so what was she silenced? Anna Kasparian, the poor silenced host, co-host, anchor, or whatever you could call her. She was never silenced. She kept saying her thing, even when criticized. I'm not even sure if she was just criticized by the fringe, quote unquote. Had pretty wide criticism. And she was never silenced, so this is a pretty horrible example. Oh, I want to give an example of the fringe left having canceling powers on the media, and then gives an example of a person that has never been actually silenced. She kept talking. She kept having a huge voice, a huge platform, never silenced.
Women, the majority of them entirely agree with Anna. It is obviously wildly dehumanizing to be called, like, defined by your reproductive organs, right? But the way the fringe left took this issue is to make her pay a price for this. If you look at the way the fringe left wields cultural power, you have medical institutions, Planned Parenthood, just across the board that's really steering away from language to even say man or woman when it's coming to healthcare stuff.
I know, but it turned out I said what I wanted to say, so it's fine.
And this has it is power being exercised. And my objection to it isn't like...
But it doesn't mean anything. What power is being exercised? What meaning is there to the power being exercised if the results are basically nothing? What are the results? What were the results for Anna Kasparian? She just kept her position. She just kept her opinion. She just kept saying it, and nothing changed, really. Nothing changed for Anna Kasparian, apart from her moving further away from the left. Apart from her saying that the left betrayed her. She was never silenced.
Some weird gender critical turfy objection to it. My problem with it is it makes people hate trans people and not want to support trans rights. I've got a really big problem with that. So the way that they are wielding that power, it doesn't just affect Biden. On the issues that I care about the very most, the fringe left is making it so we are unelectable. So I have a massive, massive problem.
Do you really believe that the so-called undecided people... I'm not muted anymore. You really believe that the so-called undecided people... Also, hello. Hello. Do you really believe that the so-called undecided people... I'm not muted. What do you mean? Am I actually still... No, I'm not muted. My gosh. Am I muted? Hello, Raiders. We're watching a Brianna Wu thing that I've partially watched while still in...
Oh, Barry!
Thank you for the tier 1. Oh, since there are a lot of people here, I can do my whole bit. So I'm going to do my whole bit since we're in the middle of the pondering politics. Thank you. Thank you very much. So, I've been to Ukraine till yesterday, basically. I went on a bus yesterday and I drove all the way back to Warsaw for now. I went to Ukraine to do conversations, to do interviews, to do, to look into some organizations that do very nice work in the middle of the war, like deconstruction, reconstruction, food delivery, building of things like camouflage for snipers, or doing things like the government initiative that allows civilians to build drones that the military can use. That's a big initiative that I would like to look into. But the big sort of downside to this is that I cannot stream when I'm in Ukraine. There's no way for me to stream when I'm in Ukraine because I have no equipment to stream with when I'm in Ukraine. And so I have sort of, there are two ways in which you, the lovely audience, because that's basically my main sort of income source, can help me with getting that equipment. You can either go to the page, which is lucyhaze.org/alive. That is it. Or I have actually started a little fundraiser, which is, this looks like a really big number, 12,500, but it is 12,500 Polish złotys, which translates to roughly $3,000. And for that amount, basically, I would like to get a laptop, a battery to be able to withstand the blackouts that are happening in Ukraine all the time for many hours on end, and a camera, because so far I've been conducting my interviews using this smartphone, which is not all that powerful, but it's been serving me well so far. So please consider supporting your hopefully favorite streamer, which is hopefully me. And now we can return to our regular programming. All right? All right. We're going to be talking about the blackouts as well today. I've got a whole article. I'm going to be talking about my personal experiences with the blackouts. It's going to be a topic. It's going to be a segment for sure.
Problem with that, and I think you're really discounting how big the threat is.
Can we unpack that for a minute? Because again,
Please.
correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure.
Seriously, correct me if I'm wrong. But wasn't Anna Kasparian upset because of language that was used in legislation to refer to birthing person? Not saying that you're suggesting this, but as far as I'm aware, it wasn't like.
Why is this heavy breathing? Is this related to the dissatisfaction of what is being said, or is that actually the post-surgery thing? I honestly cannot say.
MSNBC and CNN stopped referring to women when it came to having kids, and they referred only to birthing people.
No, I think it was some organization was saying birthing person, some healthcare organization was saying that as far as providing gynecological care. That's as I'm remembering it. I could be wrong about that, but I don't think it was legislation.
We may be on the same page, because I thought it was about legislation referencing gynecological.
The Wusai, that is very, very strange. That is really strange. It comes up as extra weird when there is no face attached to it. When there's this icon, there's this. I'm wondering, does she have trouble? I don't know, breathing? Is this like an annoyance thing?
Prenatal and neonatal care. That was my understanding, and she was triggered. From my understanding, that the language in the bill and that the language that people were advocating being used in the bill referred to birthing person, which I think is actually pretty anodyne, given that, that it's not just, biological or assigned to birth women can have kids, right? I as far as I'm aware, it was not.
Are
like
you
this.
really going to pretend that there's not a trans project to erase any, to rewrite all?
A what? A trans project? What does that mean? I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just not injected. Maybe I'm just not connected enough to the U.S. trans community. Maybe I'm just too Polish for this. Maybe I'm just too up in my own little Polish trans issues thing. But a trans project? I have to listen to this again.
There's not a trans project to erase any, to rewrite all of this language, because there obviously is, man. I mean,
what does that even mean? There's a trans project to erase and rewrite all of this language. What is this language? What does this language mean? What does the trans project want to erase? What does the trans project want to rewrite? From what to what? I think it's annoyance. President Sunday had a recording where the editor mocked her constant gasping. Jesus Christ. Maybe I just don't understand the US trans community enough as a Polish trans person. I'm just blind to the dangers of the trans project of erasing and rewriting that language.
I mean, come on, let's get real.
Yeah, but let's get
Let's
real.
get real. Let's get real.
I don't know how widespread that is, Brianna, because again, I pay attention to electoral politics. I pay
Okay.
attention to the news. It's entirely possible that I'm missing something in between commercials. But one thing I do know,
Let's get
this is
real.
not the position of the Democratic Party. It's not the position of Joe Biden. And it's not the position of CNN, MSNBC, or the major news networks. It's not the position, as far as I'm aware, of David Pakman, the Young Turks, major political commentators. So I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's out there.
There is a poll that just came out a couple of days ago, and I will link it to you
Sure.
after we get done.
There was a what?
One just came out a couple of
So I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's out there.
There is a poll that just came out a couple of days ago, and I will link it to
What is
you
the-
Sure.
after we get done.
Hey, what is the poll?
Showing support for trans rights is plummeting quickly.
Okay. What does that demonstrate? What does that have to do with anything? What?
And it is because of all of this stuff. And
How-
to be clear,
What?
you know,
Because of all of what stuff? How can you say that? You have to demonstrate it. Correlation does not equal causation to begin with. You have to demonstrate the connection. And you're not doing a very good job at doing that. You're not demonstrating any connection at all. You're just saying things. There's a thing I don't like, and there's another thing I don't like, therefore they must be connected. No, that's not how that works. You have to demonstrate the connection somehow. I got the documents. What are the documents?
big part of this is accounts like Libs of TikTok picking the worst representatives for trans rights and advertising it. But the other part of it is there is this soft cultural power that is being wielded to do things that just don't make sense to normal people, and to get things like Planet Fitness. I don't know if you know this story, but there was someone in California passed a
The
law.
only reason why this sort of soft power, quote unquote, gets any traction because the right usually takes things, twist them, and take them out of proportion, and then take them to the so-called, quote unquote, normal people. That is the usual trajectory in reality.
That made it so if you want to change your gender, you don't have to, do what you had to do 20 years ago, which is go to therapy, get a therapist to write a letter certifying that you have gender identity disorder, and take that letter and use it to go get hormones and your documentation changed. You can just go to the DMV and fill out a checkbox. Makes sense, like, hey, demedicalizing stuff, making it easy.
So basically, it looks like I have a lot more room to speak about this than Brianna, because I had to jump through a lot more hoops than she did. Apparently, I had to go to a psychologist, and a psychiatrist for that matter. I had to go through a whole battery of tests, psychological tests that would test me for basically every single mental disorder, disease, what have you, under the sun. I've been tested for schizophrenia. I've been tested for autism. I've been tested for all sorts of things to show that I'm even eligible for trans healthcare. Then I had to go to a psychiatrist. That psychiatrist had to write me a special, referral saying that I'm not totally not out of touch with reality. So that had to happen. Then I had to go to a sexuologist that had to review all these documents and come to a conclusion that I actually deserve to start, trans healthcare. So I guess I went, because let me remind you that Poland, when compared to the US, is actually far, far behind when it comes to trans rights, okay? So I guess I went through the most transmedicalist route possible. So I guess I should be, in Brianna was the biggest sort of, like, I don't know, source of any sort of, what you call it, I'm the biggest authority on transmedicalism, even I'm not a transmedicalist. Not to even mention that in order to change my official documents, I have to sue my parents in court, including, which is the more bizarre, like the suing of the parents is bizarre on its own, but my father is dead. So what do? Oh yeah, the court actually appoints a stand-in for my dead father, and I have to sue that stand-in. In, in place of my father. So technically speaking, I'm still suing both of my parents for misgendering me at birth. So yeah, this is the Polish route to trans healthcare.
Here, sure. But what happened is someone who was a little pervert and
This is actually a process that I have to start, by the way.
was
Which,
not
by the way, also costs money because I have to pay the lawyer that'll go with me through the case. And also because it's Poland, the whole procedure of suing my parents, of actually being allowed to change my documents, might take 2 years, 3 years. Who knows if I get lucky? Who knows? It might, for some people, it unironically takes years. So, great. Amazing. My doctor actually urges me to start the procedure as soon as possible because it will take years.
trans, and someone who got off by showing their genitals to women abused that law to basically do this and go into a locker room and expose their genitals to women, and it was hard at the time. So the thing is, those stories make it out into the mainstream.
Can you link me that story after?
Hold on. Let me finish. And
Hold on. Hold it.
it does make it very difficult to talk about this in a nuanced way because
There's
of that.
no nuance here. Just come on. I'm your authority. I am. When it comes to trans healthcare, I am your expert. I just am. Okay? I had to jump through a lot more hoops. I still have to jump through a lot more hoops. And you know what? In my opinion, people should jump through less hoops. People deserve to jump through less hoops. And that is what I advocate for. Okay? Since people can jump through less hoops in the US, that is a state of affairs that I'm in total support of. Because I know what it's like to jump through all the hoops. It's not nice. People should not have to do that. And that is why I am in favor of moving towards the US model of less hoops. Even more less hoops than the US has currently.
Cultural power.
Yes, I did. Quote.
That is being employed. It's very hard to have a nuanced conversation about public policy, about what the public policy of California should be for changing your gender on driver's licenses, because it instantly gets dialed up to 11 and you're called a transphobe if you have anything but the most extreme position. This is really hurting the movement.
I want you to respond to that before you do.
Listen, that is what happens when you're an expert. You just are.
I would like a link to that story so I can review it at some time. But yeah, that's just to piggyback off that. The problem isn't so much that there's legislation, right? These things. It's that
we trans project to erase and rewrite that language.
Can't talk about these things without a substantial portion of the fringe just excising you. I think, pardon me for using you as an example, Brianna, but I think Brianna is an excellent example of this happening, and I can see it in my chat, my YouTube chat, and things like that. Any kind of bringing up of anything that does not fit the narrative that they have decided is what leftism.
Oh, thank you for the $20, Eris. Thank you, everything, Lulu, and for reaching out. It really means a ton, and you're the best. Thank you. Thank you.
Is treated
Thank
as
you. I will use this for the equipment. Thank you very much. And, it's not a problem.
transphobia, right-wing fear-mongering, all these things. And it has turned off a substantial amount. Biden should be running away with this election. Biden should be running
away from,
away with this election based on the facts at hand, based on how the economy is doing, right? Based on the fact that Trump is a convicted felon, based on...
That is so wild. That is the wildest thing in the world. That we live in a world that a convicted felon just goes hand to hand, back to back with... that's so wild. That should have destroyed his chances. That's that should have been over. It should have been done. But no. He actually has a big chance of winning. Just so wild. But I genuinely feel like Biden had some sort of health problem in that debate. He just sounded like this. I think you're talking a bunch of nonsense, and the facts are. I genuinely think he wasn't well, health-wise, during that debate. Maybe it's just my perception, because I heard him talk before. He is capable of having a lot more energy when he speaks. He just felt ill.
The insurrection attempt in January 6th, based on all these facts, but he's not. And part of that is because we have let ourselves the dialogue, right?
I will admit that I'm not an expert on how the electoral process works in Mexico either. I mean, I would like to learn about it, but I'm not an expert currently, at least.
Around these things, the discourse around these things, be captured by these crazies who have decided that if you disagree with them, and they don't have it.
Crazies? Crazy Taxi. Now that's a reference. There you go. How many of you know the Crazy Taxi reference?
Any real, legislative power.
Even more so, how many of you have actually played Crazy Taxi?
But for whatever reason, our elected officials have decided to grant them this power to affect how they talk about these things. You get castigated, you get crucified, and I think we have example after example after example of this happening. So
give us the examples. If there's example after example after example after example, then you should be able to provide one. I hate it when people say there's an example after example, millions of examples, and they cannot even give one measly example. Throw me a bone. Give me something to work with. Dreamcast emulator was easy to get even back in the late 2000s. I used to have the real deal, the real console. Dreamcast, that was something. Also, Crazy Taxi was, if I'm not mistaken, an arcade game as well.
This is where I'll push back against you, Josiah. I just don't know how you can't see that, and it feels like you can't see that. I don't know. Maybe I'm being unfair to you, but respond, please.
No,
Respond, please. That was weird. That was a weird moment by Wick. Respond, please.
I think it comes down again to triage. I will acknowledge that there is a fringe movement, particularly on social media, who say crazy shit. And I recognize that. I don't know to what extent it animates or to what extent it's representative of the progressive movement. Twitter is not the most trafficked social media website, for example. It could be 5%, it could be 25%. I have no idea. For me, to the extent that I am aware of trans issues, I've covered them in the past, but as the election's gotten tighter, yes, it's been more focused on policies. It's been...
I believe that I've done some trans issues in the past. I believe I'm pretty attuned to trans issues because, I don't know, I lived through them or something. It's part of my lived experience, trans issues. And I don't really appreciate, as a binary trans woman who went through the full trans medicalist, well, still going, technically speaking, through the whole trans medicalist procedure, I really don't appreciate how Brianna Wu just decides that all non-binary people should be excluded from the movement. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of this sort of thing. Hey Lucy, Resident Evil 1, 2, and 3 original are on Google Games. Are you still using Oral? Oh wow. I mean, are they on Google Games? I mean, I can get them, I guess. Are they on a discount or something?
And Republican legislation that's been the bane of trans people in this country. It's 100 anti-trans legislation or 100 anti-trans bills in 2021, then going to like 200 in 2022, now 500 in 2024. I think the primary culprit is the GOP. And to the extent that there are people on Twitter who are useful idiots that the GOP can weaponize and say, see, this person says this crazy shit and they've got, X number of likes or whatever.
Yeah, usually it's actually the right-wingers that sort of look at the positions that are pretty small, pretty, like, they don't get traction. And right-wingers give it traction, cynically, to blow an issue out of proportion, to pretend that something is a big, huge issue that's looming on the horizon, that's about to attack and endanger everyone. That's like the oldest thing that right-wingers did and do still.
I think it suggests that the idea is we must somehow silence all the crazy people in a mass movement comprised of tens, if not hundreds of millions of people.
Like, it's usually just like the so-called left fringe. Like even the most, like, contentious, let's just put it like that, opinions usually just don't get much traction unless some right-winger figure with a big following just magnifies it cynically, I might add.
And it's not possible.
That's not
there
what
will
I'm
always...
asking.
Well,
That's
wait
not
a
what
minute.
I'm asking for. Yeah, finish. I'm sorry.
Do you... Well, then I'm not sure what you want from me, because I see it as there will always be crazy people in our movement, as there is in every movement. The question is,
please don't take this as a
Sure.
personal kind of. It's not. I'm not angry specifically at you. I think you do fine.
Sure.
You do better than me in a lot of ways, right?
Okay.
At what you do. But what I'm talking about, right? What I'm speaking to is this general tendency for people on the left who are more center, who are more, big D Democrat, to just cede this any kind of talking points to the fringe. And I think that we need to.
Nobody's ceding anything. The fact is, the fringe doesn't have any ground, any power. If anything, you should be worried about the fringe on the right. That's in the government, blocking bills, blocking aid to Ukraine for 6 months. That is what you should be concerned about, not people on Twitter.
I don't think we can silence them, but I think we can just make it very clear, and more clear than we have, that, oh, they're just the crazies. They're actually not a part of us. We're not going to pander them to all. They can go get fucked. That's it, right? And I want to get to the super chats. I got to make
Nobody's pandering.
money. So let me get through these super chats, and then we'll get back into the discussion.
Sure.
Okay,
Oh,
you guys okay with that?
No.
Sure.
Okay. $2 from Testicle Johnson. Should all beaches be nude beaches? Why or why not? Okay.
I'm thinking
Great.
not. I've seen people on beaches and would prefer that they remain clothed.
Fair enough. $5 from Harmony Ginger to say, Brianna, you did a great on the show. I don't always agree with you, but you spoke your mind and conducted yourself
you.
well. Don't be down on yourself. So thank you for.
It doesn't take much to keep nodding along to your supposed other side and just agree with what they're saying.
The $5. $2 from Keto Burrito. I like Brianna for reaching across. Wish more did. $2 more from Keto Burrito. Wick, stop letting Sunday attack Pondering's cam. Fair enough. $10. I think that was a joke.
Damn you, Sunday. Are we referring to President Sunday? Damn you,
pretty sure.
Mr. President.
President Sunday actually likes Pondering politics a lot from what I've seen.
$10 from Per Thompson to say, Brianna, how does the law promote this perv from going into a women's bathroom and flashing women? I really don't understand what the law does to help this sick person. I'll let you address that real quick. We got one more, but yeah.
It's super quick. This is the very problem. Because of this soft power employed by the fringe, we cannot have a public policy discussion about what it should be for changing
That's not the answer to the question. That it's
gender, right? Should we go back to, you've got to get the, what used to be called the Benjamins or the WPATH standards, where you get therapy, you're certified with gender dysphoria, your therapist writes a letter, and then you use that to start unlocking the doors? Or to be more friendly to non-binary people, should we have it where it's just on the honor system? We literally cannot have that discussion. This is my entire...
Yes, we can. You don't want to have that discussion because you don't want to be friendly to non-binary people. You want to exclude them from the movement altogether.
Point. Like, this is leading to bad public policy, or at the very least under-considered public policy.
Okay. And then finally, $20 from Lawson Harrison to say, I would bet that if we figure out how to divorce self-ID from transgender rights, that would resolve 90% of the general public's hesitations. Thank you. Oh my God, they attacked you again, Josiah. But back to the matter at hand. And gang, thank you for the money. If you like,
I'm listening. I'm gonna try to fuck with the setting, but I've got my mic here.
Yeah, and I guess
the honor system.
Look, I've talked a lot of shit on you, Josiah, so I feel like I need to give you the mic for a moment and let you castigate me.
Don't worry, we're gonna be talking about other things as well tonight. We're doing a long stream. We're doing a marathon stream. So I'm trying to gather money for the equipment to be able to stream from Ukraine. Oh, and I've got this idea I forgot to tell, because there's more people now. So you can chime in and give me your opinion. I'm thinking of doing in real live streaming in Kiev. I would go to a venue like a cafe or a restaurant with a nice laptop that I could stream with. And I'd be like, I am here in Kiev. You can see the city. You can see the people. And I'm streaming to you with this ice drink in my hand. And I would like to talk to you about the news. Would that be something that you'd like to see? Or maybe is that something that you would not like to see? Give me your opinion, since there are more people here now.
A little bit. Your camera's back, by the way.
Yeah, the web thing will end relatively soon.
I wonder if it's like set. I thought I had it set to 1080p instead of 4K. That might be the issue. It's like it's just burning out at 4K.
Yeah, but I wanted to because I know that we've had these discussions before, and I don't want this to be just kind of a one-sided thing. So please, if you have,
it's not felt one-sided. So listen, again, I would prefer a concrete proposal about what you would like from people like me. People who are, more focused on the Republicans or on the right than the left, and then I can decide whether or not this is something that's reasonable.
Pondering politics. This person's pondering politics. A member of Progressive Victory, by the way.
For me, because again, I understand how it comes off to you. To me, it comes off like I should spend all or half my time dealing with an issue that I don't think is all or even half the problem. That's a problem for me. If I think the GOP is 70% of the problem politically in this country, the modern Republican Party, then I should dedicate at least 70% of the time to confronting it. I just do not agree respectfully with the idea.
He is actually correct. Yeah, of course. He's correct. Instead of worrying about some imaginary fringe that makes you feel bad, that annoys you. You should actually, focus on those who actually do real tangible damage.
Idea of focusing so much more on the disagreements or the conflicts on my side than the opposing side, if I believe the opposing side is the bigger problem.
Sure.
So that's where I would like to go
I
into
will.
more.
I'll give you my response to that, and I'll let after I do. I'm gonna give the mic to Wu because I'm sure she has thoughts as well. But here's my.
Now she sounds like she's yawning or heavily breathing. So I honestly don't know at this point if that's not actually the post-surgery thing.
Sure.
This is
and I'm
my-
listening.
Yeah,
I'm still fucking with
I
the
understand. This is my thought process here. Okay, is that I understand that the Republicans are much more of a problem, but the problem is, Republicans don't listen to me. Democrats do, and I want to not only address the problems right in a proportional thing, but also address them in a way that I can be proportionally successful at. And I feel like an episode of mine that has a come to Jesus moment with the people on the left who also may be seeing some of these extremists go off and letting them know that, hey, you don't have to worry. Not all of us are like those extremists out there. That's not the Democratic
She's
Party.
yawning also.
That's not what progressive is. They're not us. And giving a better example for people who are shaky, who are floundering, who are like, oh, I don't know if I can be associated with this anymore. I think I have much more likelihood to have an impact than if I spent all day yelling at Trump voters. I mean, they're just not going to listen to me.
I think that because we talked about this before,
Sure,
and,
sure.
and this is the last thing I'll say. I'll let you have the last word, and then Brianna can say what she has to say. But we've had this conversation before, and I thought, unless I'm mistaken, you eventually conceded that your audience was more right wing than you thought initially.
It is.
So I don't think it's fair to say.
But they're not MAGA.
It is, and some of them are extremely transphobic as well. Because I do observe Wix Discord from time to time. So a lot of them are pretty right wing, a lot of them are pretty bigoted. That is true.
MAGA voters.
I understand.
You don't know that, actually. You actually cannot know that.
But my point is, I think it's a good opportunity. If I had an audience that was, again, let's just use the incentrist moniker. This is my beef with somebody like Constantine or, others as well who say that they're centrist. Well, if that's true, then you should actually spend time criticizing the right and left. If you are a centrist who criticizes the left, you are a right-winger. You're just a dishonest one, right?
Agreed.
That's why I try to be very open about my
President Sunday did a whole essay about this.
partisan and ideological leanings. It's not that I think the left is perfect, and believe it or not, even in my videos, I've criticized President Biden and the Biden administration because I disagree with certain strategic decisions that they've made. I disagree with certain policy decisions that they've made. But at the end of the day, Biden at his worst day is just objectively better for me than Trump at his best.
True, because Trump at his best still hates democracy. And Biden doesn't, even if he's old and sounds like he's barely able to speak.
Yes, and I'll never make that false equivalence. So to your point, Wick, I understand where you think you carry more of an audience and you carry more attention from the left, ergo it's worth your time to try to critique the left to get it to better itself. But I think based on your audience breakdown, you have that influence on the right and say, hey, Republicans.
Well, this helps with the
better.
center right too, and I'll respond. Then we're going to get the right to Woo, but this helps with the center right too because there's a lot of people like Counterpoints is a great example. He's on the right, he's a right winger, but he's not going to vote for Trump, and I think that reaching out to those people and letting people who are iffy on Trump who are on the right see that there's quote unquote sane Democrats, sane progressives, I think that does wonders. And this is just a disagreement on like I don't have a study right in front of me.
Yeah, but I get along with Connor. So where's the disagreement there? I get along with Connor. I say fuck you to him, but that's because
Connor's
he's a Warhammer 40K fan.
Counterpoints is very agreeable
He's a
interlocutor. You tried being President Sunday and you failed. You have failed at being President Sunday. You did your best though, so it deserves applause. The word is interlocutor. Me, the foreigner, can say it.
A very agreeable individual. If you come
I
at
was trying to say interlocutor. I want to hear that again.
him the right.
him, but that's because
Connor's
he's a
very
40K fan.
counterpoints is a very agreeable
He's a prick.
a very agreeable individual if you come at him the right way. But I will say, right?
I love this individual. Oh my gosh, that was funny.
Right? That like there are people in my audience who dislike you, Josiah, but who like me.
Shit.
Yeah, I don't know if you noticed, right?
I am aware.
Do you understand? Like, there's this. We can't. We all have different people that we will do better with, and I think that like you do great in your sphere. But I just wish you would help me more in mine. But that's all. But let's
What
give it to
does
her.
This is what I want
Go
to
ahead.
say. So Wick can back me up. I just dropped this Pew poll in DMs with him. It wouldn't let me put it in the chat where you could see it, Josiah. So in September of 2017, there's a question like, do you think
Back
that
to Gamergate. Are we back to Gamergate again? Is it back? Are we back?
your gender can be different from the sex you were assigned at birth or is determined by your sex you were assigned at birth? In September of 2017, that was 45% of people saying it could be different to 53%. It has gone down and down and down and down as
Why is that? You cannot just take something you don't like, pair it with this thing and say, that means that's the cause. Because again, even if the approval dropped, it doesn't follow it's because of what you think. You have to establish the connection between what you think is the cause and the result. And you have not done that. You have not done that at all throughout this conversation.
we've let the fringe run the trans movement, which has happened very heavily in the last 7 years. And today, 2 out of 3 people believe that you can't, trans people are not real, they don't change their gender, and only 1 in 3 people think that, right? This is a disaster for the trans movement. And it directly ties into the public policy that trans people can expect, like access to health care, access to having insurance.
That's a whole other question according to what poll, but even if that poll is true, that still does not establish the cause of why that happened. It does not establish that what Brianna Wu sees as the cause is actual reality.
To pay for surgeries like SRS or FFS. So respectfully,
it doesn't even matter if the poll is true or not. What matters is what would cause the fall of approval for trans people among the population. And you cannot just say, oh, 1, approval fell. Oh, 1, 2, there's this fringe I don't like, ergo the fringe caused it. You just cannot just say that. You have to establish the connection.
Your question was, do I have to do this? My answer is no. You don't have to call out the fringe left. This is, I kind of think about activism like an RPG party. You would probably...
What?
Be more of a white mage out there healing the Democrats and trying to keep us healthy and unified and moving along. But some of us, no one has been calling out this crazy fringe dude. And because of that, now 2 out of 3 voters don't even think trans people are...
How do you know that's even affects anything? How do you know?
Real. That is disastrous for trans people. It has a real world impact in public policy. So if you don't want to do that job and you don't do that job, because I checked your YouTube before I came on, that's fine. It's your prerogative. You can choose what to do with your own career. But this is incredibly important to me. This is the number one issue that I care about. And someone has got to fucking do it.
I care about it too. And yet, I see what you're saying is a bunch of nonsense. I'm sorry. Should I debate Brianna?
This.
Well, it's the second, right? Because remember, democracy is first, and then as far as
Sure,
like major
fair
policy
enough.
issues.
Fair
yeah.
enough. Yes.
So okay, I am not a
But
gamer.
it's very
I'm going to
valuable,
try to use
very
this
valuable.
metaphor, and
Yes.
you tell me if
Oh,
I'm
no.
fucking it up.
Oh, no. Okay,
Shut
here
up,
we go.
Wick. I'm going to try this. Okay, listen. All right. You're right. I would be the cleric healing the party or whatever.
This is painful. Go on.
Shut up. Listen, I'm going to get to it. But you would, okay, but Brianna, and I'm not saying you're doing this, but I'm saying, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but you also don't want to be the member of the party shooting other members of your party, right? Even if, like let's say you're playing with a noob like me. You'd be like, Josiah, you got to do this differently. You got to
Who doesn't care about anything but being famous, important, I guess.
do this differently. But you ultimately agree that at the
So I
end,
assume she would reject debating me because I'm not really famous or big. I mean, I'm growing. I'm trying to grow, but,
you zap the lasers at the enemy, the opponent, which in this case would be the right?
Right?
I would say it's like the Dark Knight mechanic in Final Fantasy XIV, where you sacrifice some of your health. You
fucked up,
sacrifice some
Josiah.
of your health to make the entire party stronger.
What? That's not even how the mechanic works in Final Fantasy IV. You attack the opponent, and you lose health in exchange. That's how that attack works. Cecil, the Dark Knight, did a wave that attacked all opponents, and he lost some health. She didn't even get that part right.
That's what I want to do. Your health, where you sacrifice some of your health. You
fucked up,
sacrifice some
Josiah.
of your health to make the entire party stronger.
You don't make the entire party stronger. You attack the enemy with the Dark Knight attack that eats your health.
That's what I want to do. I want to sacrifice that 1 or 2% on the fringe and marginalize them so we can get many, many more times those votes from the 40.
That is stupid, and you didn't even remember the attack from Final Fantasy IV correctly. So there you go.
2% of independence.
is
That's
it
what
possible? Is it possible, again, using this metaphor, that you inadvertently
Incorrectly, by the way. I played Final Fantasy IV on stream, for God's sake.
make the opponent stronger? In so
I think it's
doing?
possible. Of course it is. Of course
Yeah.
it is.
Nobody gets stronger in that scenario. It was an attack. You attack all the enemies on screen, and you sacrifice some of your health. Has nothing to do with making the whatever.
But I mean, again,
I'm getting too much into Final Fantasy instead of.
look at this poll. Like, this is where the public policy is going. This is why these bills are finding such salience
Where is
in
it
state
going?
legislatures. So this needs an answer.
Does it?
Is
Really?
Yeah. Listen, again, I do not and I have not quibbled. This is a constant tension that Stephen and I have, is because Stephen is more open than I am to swing left. But I think, and I understand you highlighted the differences, which is that he is a man operating in this space. He's afforded more generosity than a woman. I take all that at face value. But I also know that you respect Stephen, and
Yeah.
that you
Okay.
you mended fences with Stephen. I think that to the extent that you are able, the extent that you are permitted, I think that adopting more of a page from his book, which is that he did it with trigonometry. He did it with, he does it with people that he talks to, the twins that
Stephen meaning destiny. Stephen Bonnell II.
recently had the conversation with.
Thanks, Lucy, for debunking Final Fantasy misinformation. I have to. Someone has to. Okay? That's what you come here for. For me to debunk Final Fantasy misinformation. Ex-hubby. That's right.
Whose name is the Hodge twins.
Yeah.
He agreed when there was points of disagreement, but he never permitted this a false equivalence or this notion or this criticism of the left to go unaddressed. I feel that he was able to dig his ground in. That to me is just the difference.
In other words, he did a better job.
And I also understand that maybe if I were in that position, Brianna, it would also be really fucking hard for me.
No, I'm sorry. I'm a trans woman. I would gently push. It has nothing to do with aggression. Okay, I talked to Lonerbox. I disagreed on things with him. I did it in a non-aggressive way. Again, not agreeing on something does not automatically mean you have to be aggressive about it. You can calmly, and even in a friendly way, voice your disagreements. There's no need for the aggression. That's just an excuse.
To, in the moment, disagree with the opposition, because I feel it would potentially burn a bridge. I'm sympathetic to all that. I just still say at the end of the day, to the extent that attacks matter in your RPG, the lasers, the fireball.
Okay. Are we back? Are we back now? Hold on. Are we back now? Yeah, I think we're back. Most people dropped off, but, it is what it is. First, OBS froze. Most people dropped off. And now internet died and most people dropped off. What a wonderful development. What a night. What a night of my return from Ukraine where I could not stream at all. For me to try to do a super long stream to gather some money for equipment. How lucky. How lucky of me. Whatever. I'm gonna power through. I'm gonna power through till we earn for that equipment. Or my name is not Lucy. We still have a lot to talk about. We still have a lot to do. We still have some games to play. We still have topics to comment on. There's a lot we still need to do. So nothing's gotta stand in our way. As like in the song from the Transformers movie from 1986. If you know that movie. The real Transformers movie. The hand-drawn movie. The only one that actually counts for anything. Okay, let's finish up the Brianna thing and let's move on to the next things because we actually do have quite a lot of things to talk about. And we probably also want to play a game. We want to mix things up. This is supposed to be a super long stream. We've only been streaming for 3.5 hours.
A lot about lately.
We've made about $100, which is very nice.
I have gotten an ungodly amount of abuse from the fringe left.
Oh, so that's what it's all about at the end of the day. The fringe left has been mean to me. So I have to make it a mission to fight them.
Following October 7th, I've reported more death threats to law enforcement than I can even count at this time, as many as I did during Gamergate. The attacks on my integrity
Gamergate
happen daily, and it's really, really hard for me not to be resentful about that. I think something I've been really struggling with lately is, am I letting that anger do to me what it did to J.K. Rowling and Dave Chappelle, where they got so angry at those people that were attacking them so much, they developed some really shitty politics. I don't think I have, but I've been thinking about that a lot. So I think your point is really taken. What I think the difference is, you mentioned Piers Morgan. I'm going to be going on Piers Morgan soon. About a very contentious issue. And
what was that? Was that Wick? That was so weird.
I intend to go on there guns blazing because Piers Morgan loves an argument. That's the one suggestion Jake gave me when I was talking to him about it. He loves to argue. That's his favorite thing. So I'm going to give him one. I'm fine with that. My interpretation with Constantine and talking to him and Francis before the show was looking for that middle ground. I just
Brianna
thought
is the most victim ever. True.
it was the better tactic in the moment. So anyone that has seen me on Wick knows I have no problem going aggro if it's called for. I think your criticism is fair. I just want credit that I did build a bridge there. And I can show you hundreds of emails showing it. I did put a different face on the Democratic Party.
Two things
than
I
a lot
want
of this audience had seen.
Yeah, I want to get your side of the mic to respond, but then you said something in the middle there that I really want to ask you about.
Don't forget it, Wick.
Yeah,
Do
just
not forget it. So, so to your point about the bridge, Brown, again, if you're getting these emails from Trigonometry fans saying that they have moved more
Talk about
leftward
them.
because of your appearance there, I can't contest that, and I'm not going to. I do think, as I said to you privately, a week ago or however long ago it was, and even now during this conversation, I do think, you did attempt to build a bridge. I just don't think they met you in the middle of that bridge. They stayed on the other end. That's it. And so, so to use
It's just, I don't know. You just agreed with them on everything. Did they actually agree with you on anything that they disagree with? I don't think so. No.
a crude analogy, at a certain point, it's almost like, get your ass over here. I met you halfway. I am doing, to the extent that I believe that these are sincere, legitimate disagreements with my side of the aisle, I have shown you, Constantine and Francis, good faith.
Okay, we're gonna speed it up now to 1.25.
Now, unless you think the right is perfect, show me a little good faith, and let's talk about the election denialism of MAGA. Let's talk about how the Republicans have an objectively
We
worse
spent too long on this, I believe.
record on Ukraine. You mentioned, yes, a great question to Constantine and Francis when you said, do you think that the Republicans have been compromised by Russia? And he immediately dismissed
Yes, they sort of have. There's been a lot of talk about this, especially with Trump. Trump, who said during the debate, I will remind you that he talked with Putin beforehand about his dream of conquering Ukraine.
it. But you know who hasn't dismissed it? Republican congresspeople like Michael McCall has said his own party has been infiltrated. And so it's like Constantine, and I understand you would phrase this much more gently, but a guy who knows the Republican Party far better than you do, Constantine, an actual Republican, has said his party has been infiltrated by Russia. So are you prepared to grapple with that? The idea that there are some areas that the Republican Party is just deficient compared to Democrats? What will you give me in return? That's it. I think you built a bridge. I think you did the work. They didn't do any of it. You met them halfway on that bridge, and they stayed on the other side. And I do think that's a problem. And I think
Can I just say something here really quickly?
Yeah.
And
So
this
that's not really anything useful, by the way.
is an honest question. How much major media have you done in your career?
none.
I know, she just gets salty. She just gets angry.
Okay, so this is something I have learned because I've done a lot of major media. The most important hit is the first one because you want to build, you really want to focus on the producer particularly, and really making sure you make it super easy for the producer to book you. And you want to, and then after that hit, after that first hit, that's when you can get a little bit more aggro. But it's opening up that door that first time. So I think, like, in all seriousness, I'm sure I'll go back on again.
That's
and
good.
I think it will be a different kind of tenor because, their audience likes me. It did good numbers.
We'll see.
It got a lot of
I'm
buzz.
just gonna say that. We will see.
I think there's value
I'll believe it when I see it.
kind of holding that once you have a good relationship established because you don't want to be the asshole going on a show guns blazing and blowing it all up.
Yeah, you don't want to begin the conversation when they're like,
Yeah,
"Hi, Brianna."
sure. You don't want to go all guns blazing. But it doesn't mean that you don't push back at all. None, zero, zilch.
Brianna, how are you? And you're like, fuck you, you piece of shit, right? Yeah. And listen, and again, if you think
And
you're
that's
going to
not
go,
even what Pondering Politics proposed here. He proposed nothing that required this sort of weird aggro energy. None whatsoever.
back on, if you're going to try to go back on,
Sure.
I hope that you act in such a way as to make it clear to them that they need to reciprocate. Good faith. This is the thing Wick and I've talked about before. Good faith cannot be one-sided by definition. If you and I are having a conversation and you act in good faith, Brianna, and I don't, by definition, we had a bad faith conversation because it must be reciprocated. And same thing with charity. And I just don't think they did that for you. But hopefully in the future they will, and you'll have a chance to push them more and defend the left in the areas that you think the left must be defended, and attack the right where you think the right should be attacked.
Did you see me on Tim Pool? I think no one would say I wasn't very aggressive for that.
No, so
Okay, that's...
Call. So
Yeah.
it's funny. It's funny you say that because actually, yes, if you remember, you and I had a private conversation briefly about your exchange on Tim Pool. I think that the Tim Pool, again, in my opinion, armchair quarterbacking was a much better showing for you because you were charitable with Tim to the extent that I think Steven has tried to, Vosh has tried to, and you also push back more frequently. And has he ever talked about having you back on?
Yeah, I'll be back on soon.
Good for you. Okay, so yes, I that is an example of where I think that it was
So she
from
just defeated her own argument. Congratulations.
my recollection, and from my recollection of our conversation at the time, that was a much more balanced conversation where you dug your heels in much more often. I think it was to the betterment of the left because you represented them. Yeah.
But his audience liked me a lot less. I think that's worth
Oh,
noting.
I bet.
So,
I fucking bet. Yeah.
Okay. You're just defeating your argument then.
Yeah.
I got less emails saying you changed my mind. So
Yeah.
Well, different.
And again, I can't compete with that. So at the end of the day, listen, if you've got evidence that you've moved people, like Steven talks about this before, how, him going on this channel, that channel, he's gotten emails and responses from people saying, hey, listen, I appreciate your reasonable approach. Then fair enough. I can just tell you what it looked like to me. So at the end of the day, it's a judgment call.
We did have a super chat earlier saying that exact thing, that that the respect there, because, and this is what I want to highlight, I think, in these kinds of conversations, and this is just a general overall statement, right, is that people have to respect you before they're going to believe you. They have to believe that what you were saying...
You don't gain respect just by blindly agreeing with everyone that the other side says. That's not how you build respect.
...is going to be genuine and honest before they take you seriously. You can have all the facts at your disposal, but if they just think you're an asshole and don't like you, they're just not going to...
It's great, but just blindly nodding to everything that the other side says is not being genuine, is it?
Listen. And that's the unfortunate part. Like, would it be better if people just used logic and facts and reason?
I mean, some people could say that that's technically speaking being a genuine ass licker, but is that really the trajectory? Is that really how it should go?
Probably, but they don't. That's not how people work. And asking people to just take your word for it and take your word for all these facts and things like that without at least making that pill swallowable, I think that's a failure, right? A lot of left-wing commentators, me included, right, fail at this too often, is that we want to shove it down the enemy's throat. And they're obviously going to fight against that.
It's not either or. It's not just either blindly agree to everything or shove it down the enemy's throat. There's a middle ground there somewhere.
You can make the pill much more soft. A spoonful of sugar helps medicine go down, right? And I think that we could apply that to most of our conversations. Now, there are certain people where I don't care if they gag when I'm trying to shove it down their throat, right? Like pills down their throat. But, stop. I regretted that phrasing almost immediately. Okay, yes. But... you know what I mean? Like, there's some people like I just don't want on my team at all, and they can go get fucked. But for people I'm trying to actually work with, who I believe are honest actors and are genuine people, I will use all the sugar I need to get them to swallow that pill. Let me touch on, and we're not going to go too much longer, right? I know we got places to be, but I wanted to touch on something Brianna said, and I want to get your thoughts on this, because you mentioned it, and you mentioned it's something you think about it, but I wanted to talk about it more generally, because I think it's very important. You mentioned that one of the worries that you have is that you are being negatively polarized. And what I mean by that is that you're being pushed into contrarian stances because of the just rabid hate that you get from certain sectors. Like, and I think Dave Chappelle
that just
and
means you're weak.
J.K. Rowling were two people you mentioned for that. So I wanted to interrogate that a little bit more, because I think we should all acknowledge that this is a thing that happens, and none of us are immune to this. None of us are immune
Jordan W says language is such a sex pest. True.
Being negatively polarized. So can I ask you, Brianna, what are some ways that you have tried to protect yourself from this kind of thing? What because you get this probably more than me, more than Josiah, more than anyone that I've talked to, right? You get this so much. So what mechanisms, what habits have you employed to keep yourself from just going full like, oh, you hate me? Okay, fuck you. I'm going to turn against everything you stand for, right?
Well, so far from what I've seen from Brianna Wu, I would say there are no such mechanisms in place, because I've seen her plenty of times, sometimes intoxicated, actually scream at people, you don't like me, fuck you, etc. So I'm not even sure if those mechanisms are present, but we'll see what the answer is.
Right.
Well, I mean, I put out a tweet, that got a lot of, actually got me a lot of unfollows this weekend, saying like, hey, look, just so you know, I'm voting for Biden, y'all. I will never vote for Trump. The election denialism is a hard line. So I try to make the case for Democrats really consistently. I think a lot of it is the self-awareness. And I think if you look at my Twitter right now, I think probably too high a percentage.
Brianna will have self-awareness?
of it is critiquing the fringe left. I do have to say, my motivation in talking so much about anti-Semitism is 100% about getting Joe Biden elected. I think if Democrats are not out there
Does
making
Brianna even understand anti-Semitism?
the case that this bullshit is not acceptable, I don't think Jews are going to stand with us. I just flat out don't believe it. So, you know,
I'm Jewish, but I cannot vote in the U.S., so I don't matter. Do I?
that is about me trying to save the party. But I think it's just being aware that this can radicalize you and trying to, stand with your values, right? So, I think particularly as we get closer to the election, I think you're going to see more and more of my Twitter talking, making the case for Democrats, if that makes sense.
No, it does, and I hope that's the case. I know I worry about myself in this.
Yeah.
Right? I worry.
That makes sense if you forget that it has nothing to do with the question, but
that, especially with things like Israel-Palestine, that the overwhelming amount of crazy on the Palestinian side, I really try to not let it color the realization that Israel has a lot of
Hello, Unchained Mel. Hello. Welcome to the stream.
problems. They do some fucking horrible shit.
The stream is gonna go on. We're not finished.
And I'm
far from finished because I just came back from Ukraine. We have quite a few things to talk about, and I'm raising funds in order to be able to get equipment to stream from Ukraine. And for that purpose, you can either join the page, become a subscriber on the page lucyhaze.org/live, or you can go to the page of the little fundraiser that I've created and give a little donation that way. All of that is going to go for the purpose of buying equipment for Ukraine. And I will provide receipts if necessary, which probably will be necessary. I'll just provide them. Forget the if necessary, I'll just provide them.
just from a personal kind of perspective, what are some things that you feel like you have been unfair to people on? Let's do a come to Jesus moment here with both of us. In what ways do you think you've maybe been unfair to people who maybe snapped when you shouldn't have? Do you feel like there are any
When have you been unfair to the fringe left? I wonder what the answer to this will be.
any examples of that you'd like to?
Never. I really don't think I've ever been unfair, Wick. You see, I'm 46 years old, but maybe I shouldn't be unfair. Maybe she will actually give an example as when she was unfair.
Talk about? I'm just curious.
Like offhand right now, I mean, I lose my temper sometimes. That's my character flaw as a person. I've done it on your show before. No, I do want to say something I think is different about me than you, Wick, is I've famously gotten it from both sides. I came to prominence from getting this stuff from the alt-right. I've gotten it from the left. I think that really has created a, I've
got the special perspective that nobody else does, simply put.
Very high importance on speaking my mind and standing up for what I believe is right. But, at the same time, I think sometimes, I think that I see the siren allure of turning against all these people, and I just try to be cognizant of that and remind myself that, at the end of the day, Democrats need to win.
Gotcha. Josiah, I'm curious for you. I'm wondering, because, again, you have a much less of a Twitter presence than Brianna Wu, but I am curious.
Or you, for that matter. Yeah.
To what extent do you find yourself getting maybe negatively polarized against people who would otherwise be on your team, if at all? Right? This might not apply to you, right?
Believe it or not, I have gotten critiques from people on the left before. I imagine they happen less frequently than either of you two. But so Cody Johnston of Some More News had this really funny tweet a long time ago where he said something like, the left got a little too PC, so I changed my position on healthcare, the military, foreign policy, domestic policy, blah, blah. He's making fun of people like who do the I left the left thing. And so one of the things I've tried to take from heart from the very beginning is, number one, I do sincerely believe in a progressive agenda and that the Republicans are the immediate obstacle. And when I made this, when I quote tweeted the tweet that you made, Wick, for today's event, I had at least one person I saw in my mentions go off on me the fact that I'm having a conversation with Brianna, and I just ignored it. Now, it's easy for me to do because it's not like my mentions are being flooded with it, but when it's happened in the past, I either ignore it or I respond with an okay, like a lowercase okay. And the way I look at it is, I'm going to be an ally to the left, even if the left doesn't fucking want it. Like, if I ever get to the point where I drive, like I said, I have a pretty good rapport with the guys at the Vanguard.
That is a far better attitude than the one represented by Brianna, who I will say that. Oh, the French left.
I do like them, but it's entirely possible that between now and the election, they'll be so pissed off about my pro-electoral, go reelect Biden no matter what, situation, because I think, Democrat would be better in that position than a Republican. I will be an ally of the Vanguard, whether the Vanguard wants it or not. I will be an ally of the left, whether the left wants it or not. I will not allow them. They cannot kick me out of this. I will bear hug them in love and say, listen, I will never turn to the right.
Got you. Okay.
I will never turn to the right, no matter how much you hate me, because I do sincerely hold these principles, and also because I think it's a fun way to annoy these people. So it's kind of like that. But it's also easy for me to say now because it's entirely possible that if I had, 500,000 Twitter followers and I was just getting inundated in this shit from my side, my views may change. But as of right now, that's how I've gone.
I'm not sure if Brianna will get attacked by 500,000 people, because at that point, would that really be a fringe, quote unquote, 500,000 people?
Death threats regularly. Do people tell you they're going to rape you? Do you get child pornography
No.
sent to you? I get that all the time, man.
I've had 2 death threats sent to me through YouTube, right? Such that they were like, when I came back to it, they were auto-moderated.
Oh, hey, look,
out.
I just had a guy accusing me of raping women in my channel right now as we're talking, right? So yeah, I got you. Go ahead.
But Brianna, that's what I'm saying. It's entirely possible that I would feel much more bitter about it, or have the temptation to really be galvanized by it if I were inundated the way that you are. But
it's not that I think I'm bitter. It's that I think for whatever reason, there are a lot of people that really, really love me, and there are some people that just hate me. It's very similar to Destiny, right? So at this point,
I don't think it's similar to Destiny, but
just damaged from all of it, to be really honest with you, and I can just tune it out. So, I guess
the damage.
Just saying it's easy to say that. That's how you would respond. I think if it actually happened to you, I think you might feel a little differently. So.
Which is precisely what I said. That is precisely what I said, that if my circumstances were different, I might feel differently. But the way I've been trying to go about it from the beginning is basically frame it in my mind that no matter what, I will try to cling to these principles. Yeah, no matter what. But yeah.
Can I ask you just real quick, because I know we got to go and I want to wrap up a little bit.
Yeah, please wrap up. I have other topics to talk about.
I want to ask both of you first this final question, and then if either of you have questions for me or questions for each other, we can ask those, and then we'll wrap it up. But final question to you both. What would you consider your core foundational principles, right? Morally, politically, etc. When someone asks you, like, what principles are the most important to you?
What a totally non-vague question.
How would you answer? And I want Josiah first, then we'll pass it to Wu, and then, yeah.
I would say trying to democratize as much as possible. Try to strive for a society which gets as close to equality as possible, or at least presents that opportunity optimally. Doing so requires enshrining minority rights in there as well, and also just civil rights in general, freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Basically trying to create a society that everybody is on as much of an even footing as possible, and then from there, they go from there, but one that looks out for the least among us. Those are principles that I hold pretty dear.
I think politics change and what is important changes. Like in the Bush era, stopping the Iraq War was something I considered a top priority. Today, it is, safeguarding trans rights. So, it's not so much a policy as much as
protecting trans rights by including a whole bunch of trans people. That's great.
I think it's integrity. It really amazes me how little people talk about integrity. And Wick, you served in the military, so I know you get this.
Forget it.
We're a military family, and we talked about that all the damn time growing up. So being truthful to your word, being honest in how you represent things, standing up for what you believe, trying to think.
Are those things that Brianna will fits?
About your actions and make sure that you're being reasonable and fair. That is my highest principle. And
is it now?
I want, by the end of my career, I hope to have done enough to have an obit in the New York Times. And I'm sure it's going to be all over the map, but we'll talk about Gamergate. We'll talk about the work I'm doing now.
Again, Gamergate.
And I really hope that obit will say that I'm someone that had integrity in what I said, and I wasn't afraid to challenge people. That's what's really important to me.
Well, you were afraid to challenge people. You did not challenge people at all. You just agreed with them. And you defended it by saying that that's the only way to open doors. Because you couldn't go all aggro. So no, you didn't challenge anybody.
Excellent. Well, do either of you have questions or something to bring up that we haven't discussed yet?
I have a question. Just so what do you think? This is a really tough election, and I believe that if Trump wins, one of the whispers I'm hearing from the people that work in anti-trans politics is one of the first things they're going to do is basically sign bills to make the liability for providing gender-affirming care, to make that extremely expensive, which is going to result in people stopping access to gender-affirming care. So I think trans rights are really on the ballot this election. What responsibility do you feel for trans people, and how does that reflect in the career choices that you make?
Yeah, so I think as somebody who supports trans rights, I think it's important for anybody who is on the left or supports the Democratic Party to try to be, number one, as inclusive as possible and defend against the excesses and the overreaches of anti-trans Republican legislation. I covered the increasing, I don't want to say by orders of magnitude.
I've actually not covered any anti-trans legislation this year. Maybe I should cover some.
Substantially increasing raft of anti-trans legislation coming out of states, again, beginning in 2021, going up to 2023, and then it just kind of like lost focus in my coverage as I focus more on like the horse race and electoral politics. But yeah, I think we have an obligation
to been focusing a lot on the war, I guess.
Protect marginalized groups. And I think you'd easily make the case that trans people are the most marginalized group in the country, So yeah, I think that we have a duty to win, and I think we have a duty to protect against anti-trans legislation from all comers.
I think that's fair.
But also, as far as what Trump would do specifically, what's interesting is I don't know the extent to which Trump himself, and I imagine you feel the same way as anti-trans. I just feel he's a malignant narcissist. You probably think, what the hell is trans, right? Like he was just educated about this 3 days ago or 3 years ago. I think he is a proxy for ideologically motivated people who really want to harm that community. And that's another reason why I think it's important
I can agree with that, yeah.
to not just defeat him.
I don't think Trump is all that invested personally into the trans discussion.
Presidency, but you also have to retake the House and you also have to keep the Senate. And it's a brutal map, particularly for the Senate, because they need only to win 2 seats. Yeah. So we have to win a trifecta. And then, of course, we have to deal with the final boss of American democracy at the moment, which is this right-wing Supreme Court. Because even if you protect things at the federal level, and let's say that you have a sufficiently motivated Democratic majority to enshrine trans protections into federal law, which would, of course, supersede state law, states will challenge it. It'll be granted cert in front of the court, and then there's no fucking telling how that court will decide. They may strike down a federal congressional law which enshrines anti-trans legislation. So to me, this is the real obstacle. This is something I complain about a lot with WIC, which is it's not enough to get Biden reelected, which itself is going to be challenging. Got to take back the House, keep the Senate, and do something about this court, rein this court in, because they're even with just the trifecta in terms of House, the Senate, and the presidency. Yeah,
we can have that fight another day, right?
So I'm just saying to Brianna, I agree that it's going to be.
What would disagree on this?
Perilous and incredibly complicated and incredibly challenging, and I don't think it's enough to just win the presidency.
I hear what you're saying, and I think that's really fair. This is part of why I get so irritated at the anti-electoralism, particularly from the fringe Palestine people. I really feel like they would sacrifice American democracy just to, frankly, poke a stick in the eye of the Zionists that believe Israel should exist. I think a lot of them would do that.
Whatever.
Hear what you're saying, and I agree with you. That's the top priority. But I think at the same time, there's got to be some bold leadership that is willing to go out there and to refocus the discussion on public policy that makes sense, that is sellable to a wider electorate. I think that's a really thankless job. And, Wick, to your credit, I think you have those kinds of discussions on your show. I appreciate it when you have it. And I think we need more of that. If I could wave my magic wand and fire every single quote unquote leader in the trans rights movement right now, I would do that. They've steered the entire thing into a cliff. So, in my estimation, this kind of work going out
of
to
course.
Pools audience.
The reason why things are better because of trans advocates, of course.
Trigonometry and talking to Lauren Southern and going on Pierce Morgan.
Only Brianna Wu was the leader of the movement. Everything would have went smoothly.
And trying to present a less radical, more public policy focused version of the trans movement. I think that's one of the very top priorities we should be doing. So that's how I feel.
I want to read these last 3 super chats, and then I want to give each of you some closing thoughts, and then we'll just kind of wrap it up.
Now I'll go to the toilet, and then we continue this stream because there's a lot left.
and I know you guys got places to go. And I want to thank you both
Places
for
to
having
see.
this conversation. I know it can be fraught at times, and I hope that we've navigated it well, and I hope the listeners, my audience, can take away something from this discussion. Right?
Maybe.
Let's get to these super chats, and then we'll get to the closing thoughts.
Sure.
$5 from AKA Batausi. Wick, can you ask Pondering to give 3 policy positions he agrees with that are on the right?
Ooh.
That are on the right.
The Goldberg rule is that psychiatry shouldn't be used as a political tool. True.
And more moderate ones. No, I don't think any of the policy prescriptions that even I would define as moderate would belong to the right. There's nothing about the current Republican Party agenda with which I agree. Like, I was even tempted to say, okay, voter ID, for example. The problem is what Republicans want for voter ID is incomplete. I have no issue, if it would alleviate some concerns, many of which I believe are bad faith, about stolen elections or whatever, but they would want to throw as many obstacles into voter ID as possible. You got to order, you got to go in person, you got to stand on one foot, you got to take this plate.
Yeah, let me rephrase the question perhaps to kind of get it. What are 3 concerns that right-wing people have that you are sympathetic to? How's that?
I am sympathetic. I don't know if there's a policy consideration, but I am sympathetic to this idea that half of this country hates the country, that patriotism is the exclusive province of the right. I think it's perfectly reasonable to love this country and love living in this country and also want it to be better. I would say that's a concern. I would say even this idea that the Democrats have become out of touch, which is actually a criticism that's been levied at them for decades, that they're the elitist party, that they're the party of the elite. I don't totally agree with it, but I understand where they're coming from. But I also think that that's something that's not reciprocated. I think that actually there's attempts by Democrats, certainly elected Democrats, to try to appeal to the right more than there are attempts by the Republicans to understand and appeal to the left. So those are concerns as well. I would also say the need for a strong military. I know that that's something that is often disavowed by elements of the left, but I don't want the United States of America to become the second most militarily powerful country on earth. I want us, and I say this as somebody who lives in this country, so perhaps I'd feel differently if I lived in a different country, but I want the United States to maintain military supremacy. But I also think that the DOD can't pass an audit and hasn't for years, so I also don't believe that we have to pay as much as we do into our military budget to maintain our edge over other powers as well. But those are 3 concerns off the top of my head that are right-leaning. But I really need to be clear about this. I can't say that it's full-throated endorsement of their position because I think it's incomplete and more nuanced than that.
$10 from the Justice 35. I think Josiah's problem is that he doesn't understand practical politics and how absolutely.
If practical politics is just blindly accepting what the other person says, then
ranged culture war issues are easy layups to the right, and that congressional repubs are good at the job. Do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, so I think that this is why you see Republicans traffic in culture war issues and culture war. And this is funny. It's interesting that that this is brought up because Brianna talks about this in her conversation with the trigonometry folks, and I actually thought she made a pretty good point that Constantine clearly didn't like, and there was a bit of a walk back there, but which is they focus on culture war issues. I think to the detriment of policy. I think that the way I put it on my channel, not to be too blasé about it, but culture war issues encompass questions about patriotism, which I told you I'm sympathetic towards, but also notions of, damn, the green M&M is wearing flats instead of high heels. This is something to swing the, this is something that, exactly. Like I don't have any patience for that. I think it's fucking stupid, and I'll never validate that. Okay. So it depends on what you mean by culture war issues. I think that the broader advantage that Republicans have is that they are able to hyperfixate on these relatively niche issues. Not all of them are relatively niche, but a lot of
them out of proportions and turn them into big issues.
Them, and they're able to blow it up. Look at the gas stove thing, for example. Remember, it was wildly, propagated by Republican politicians that Joe Biden's coming for my gas stove. No, he's not. Its safety emission standards have been in place rigorously since George W. Bush, famous non-woke guy, right? And so they're focusing on this
now too. But go ahead.
Right, and also Governor DeSantis in Florida passed, the statewide credit that if you get a gas stove, the state will help pay for it, even though like 95% of stoves in Florida are not gas. This is the shit that they traffic in, because when it comes to questions about healthcare and democracy and stuff like that, they tend to be on the losing side.
True.
So yeah, I know that they're skilled at exploiting it, but I don't know what you want from me. Sure. I can't validate some of these things.
And $10 follow-up from the same person, Justice 35, $10 follow-up to say, when I say good job, I mean politically. Conservatives are right about trans, sports, crime, and immigration. Dems
are they right about transports, immigrating? Are they?
too nerdy and too cosmopolitan to acknowledge conservative concerns about the government. Thank you.
So can I use that as an example? So that's
quickly,
that's a great
because I know
example.
everyone's got to go, and I
I was just gonna say, so like even on the crime, we have the stats on this, and I know people say, well,
Yep.
the FBI stats are incomplete, but there have been surveys done as well to boost this. Jeff Asher, crime analyst, has a great blog about this. That even when you pull sources or data from different sources, it confirms the trend. Crime is dropping. So no, Republicans are dead wrong about that. Trans issues in sports, again, it's not like this is not my area of expertise, but my understanding is that's like 100 people in a 330 million person nation, and it's such an egregious culture war niche issue that even the Republican governor of Utah vetoed an anti-trans bill that was aimed about trans people in sports because he's like, guys, this is way too broad for such a niche issue. What the fuck? So no, even that, I'm sorry, I disagree. There may be some culture war issues out there, but I don't think crime and trans people in sports is one of them.
One of the things that I'd like to pick your brain on someday, another day, is when it comes to crime, bail reform and things like that. Because
That did not work out super well.
Yeah, there's been some stories about this. And so when we say things like crime, I think that there should be a discussion. Like if I was going to have, if I had to say one more right-leaning position that I hold is I think that ideas towards like defunding the police, bail reform, and these things are dangerous. And I think they have bad outcomes. But I won't get into that. $5 from Zephyr Hash. Let's get these new trigonometry viewers in a bridge
If you don't want to get into it, then why mention it?
building. Brianna greater than Wick, who's greater than Josiah, who's greater than Progressive Brianna. Pipeline. Thank you for the $5. And $2 from the Justice 35 to say incorrect. You're dead wrong about crime. Well, maybe you could fight another time.
Is that the guy who said the first couple things? Yeah. Maybe he meant what you meant, which is about bail reform. Maybe. If you mean crime rates are dropping, no, I'm right, no wrong. Get over it.
Okay. Well, gang. It's been great. I want to give these two a lovely outro, and again, thank you.
Okay, we're done.